so wild right now. Raise the volume, turn it up a little. I don't know what's up with this costume that I've been seeing in the ride. Let me disguise it for a minute. I'm inside it, I can't hear it, but I'm diving. I ain't spirit, I'm a ghost on this bitch like a cyborg. What I meant to say, I mean, driving fast, got a sensei in this beat. Driving fast in this heat, I can't say nothing. Find a red on, so I'm lying. It's a devil inside this computer. I feel like a ghost got inside myself. So I'm carving out this mode, this light, this soul, this fun, this right, this gold. I don't know what's for sure, but I know I'm alone inside my mind for the time being. Rhyme with a conceit, hard for the sun eating. Damn, this week kinda cold. I feel like a soul, snow globe in the cold. Whoa, don't know where to go. So I dive in the beat, right in the beat, say dive in the seas. Damn, but I'm back to earth now. Gotta put my 2 feet down and let them know that this sound is here to stay for the time being. And let my soul be, let go of the beat. It's all of the seat. I'm out of the float seat, but back to the show. That was kind of cool.
That was hard.
At first, I didn't even know what to do with things, so I was like, damn, this is kind of fast, you know?
That was good.
Yeah, it was
really
really fast
good.
beat.
Welcome to Vine Tree Radio. It's your boy West here chilling with
Mauriwowi, how's it going?
I'm here chilling with a guest. Introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Bree. Nice to see you guys.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for coming to Vine Tree Radio, chilling with us. It's gonna be a good one today. We know we've been on the midst of recording a lot of different podcasts for this season and shit, but I feel like today is one where we get to talk about music, but we get to talk about genres within music and something that we don't often, I guess, touch on, EDM. And that whole world within that. I feel like that's a main point within this pod today. I mean, we've talked about, I guess, our love for different genres. I don't want to, I'm not talking about that. I know, like, we love a vast varieties of music, but I feel like the world within itself, like, basically, like, mad DJs to begin with, that's some shit I'm not really too versed in, but I know that it's some shit I kind of am like a product of, I guess, if you will. Mm-hmm. So I guess first off, to start off the pod, we can get into like a little bit of just your background. When did you get into this type of music, or when did you get into like music itself first? Because would you always listen to EDM? I guess that's a cool place to start. Or was it like or was that like something you got into like later on type shit? Like
definitely later. Like most people grew up listening to whatever their parents listened to, and like I grew up in a single mom household, and my mom listened to AM 1070 radio, and I still know the fucking the way that they would like sing it, like their little like tune, like KNX 1070 news radio, and all it was is news and different shit about, the traffic and cooking and just news and stuff like that. And it was super boring. And she just never really listened to the radio unless we like listened to like, 102.7 or stuff like that. And I was just never that into pop music growing up. Like when I finally got my own iPod and stuff, I listened to like Chris Brown and a lot of like, just a lot of like pop kind of rap and like Rihanna and stuff. And then
just that was like on the radio. But even when you had an iPod, that was still like the wave.
That was what I was listening. Exactly. I was just listening to what was popular with the times. And then finally when I like started to like realize what I actually liked, I started to listen to more like indie stuff, and I started to listen to more of like the Floozies and like the Skins, or not the Skins, what is it? The Skins, and just like a bunch of like different like indie kind of like bands.
Have you ever heard of those
that.
bands? Not like on some shit like I'm saying, like that's not some shit that's like I've never heard of them, to be honest with you. That sounds dope.
Honestly,
Really?
I don't think I've heard of
or like the drugs against, or the fight against drugs, or the war against drugs. No,
I've heard of that one, but I don't think
war
I've
against drugs. Yeah,
like listened to much.
Okay.
That sounds ill though. That's what I'm saying. That's kind of in a way like I feel like I listen to a lot of fucking music, but it's weird that like that's some shit I probably dead ass have never heard of type shit.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff like The Strokes, like a
I've
lot
heard
of
The
just
Strokes.
okay, yeah, The Strokes is really big. That's like a bigger artist of that genre, but like I just liked a lot of like the indie, like smaller bands and stuff. I got into that a lot, and then I found Lana Del Rey, and this was before Calvin Harris did like that song, like what is that big song that he did with her, with Lana Del Rey? Summer, what is it?
Is it Summertime Sadness?
Yeah, Summertime Sadness. Thank you.
That sounds dope.
Yeah, and which is one of my least favorite songs of her. But that song came out and it made her really big. And because of that, now she's the big star that she is, which I'm really happy for. But before that, she was a lot smaller and she had like her Paradise album and like...
Might be on Pusha T's album cover.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did not know that. She's really big now, which
Like
I'm
her
really
album-
happy for her. But yeah, like that song started her off. But before that, I started listening to her and I really liked her. And I was even going to go to a show of hers that would have been $80. I think she was playing at like the Shrine or something. And it was like $80 for me to go. This was back when I was like 16. So this was back when like it was like 2014. And it was really cheap, and I, for whatever reason, didn't go. Like I couldn't find enough people to go, or like my mom didn't trust it because, like, you know, my mom was really strict growing up, so she didn't want me to go alone, obviously. So I just didn't end up going. But nowadays, if you were to like try to see her, especially like front row, which I could have been because it was just like a, you know, standing like general admission kind of ticket, it probably with thousands of dollars to be able to see her, I'm sure, like depending on where, unless you see her like Coachella or something like that, or if she's like playing, you know, like a big festival. But if you actually see her in person, like a show for just her, which is what I was gonna see, it would be way more expensive now. But yeah, like I started getting off into that, and then I started getting more into like rap, and I started listening to like J. Cole. I really liked like old
at what
Kendrick.
age though? So like this is still like...
So this is like, let's see.
Middle school,
so
high
Lana
school.
would be when I was like middle school going into high school. And then when I was like maybe 14 through like 15, 16, it was like all just like rap and like I listened to like J. Cole. I really liked like all of everyone from like Odd Future and stuff.
And not to go like too much on a tangent, but like I guess at this time were you like interested in music like or like art as like a fan, or like did you already like, even though this is like another topic, did you like already paint and do this other stuff at that time, or like was that just like something like you did later after that too?
Well, painting has always been a part of my life. Like, it's always been just something that I've done for, like, fun. Like, I've always been those kids where, like, you know, where you go to, like, camp or, like, after-school stuff, and, like, do you guys want to do sports and go outdoors, or do you guys want to do arts and crafts? And I was like, arts and crafts. Like, I'd always just be that kind of person. And even just stemming from that, I always just liked, you know, just like painting. Like, it's always just been like a nice release for me. Like, I've always kind of had this anxiety.
So like when everybody was painting like in class and shit, like your shit was killing.
Exactly.
Like it wasn't like just like you didn't try hard for it. Like that was like you went to like show out at that point in time since you were young.
Exactly. No,
That's
yeah.
ill.
No, yeah. Ever since I was young, I would always like, I've always been someone that like wants to be the best at things. Like I'm always like, I'm just a very competitive person by nature. So like even with art, like if like someone gave a task of like, hey, let's do this like macaroni thing or whatever, I'd be like, okay, mine's gonna be the best looking one. Like I would just like, I'd be like, okay, out of everyone's, mine's
like,
gonna
I'm
look
make
the
it
best.
look like, you know,
yeah,
they're
like
all
mine's gonna be
connected
some
this way,
Picasso, like nice, like I'm gonna make it look nice. Like
I
that's
feel
just,
that.
I've just always been that kind of person. But like stemming from that, like, you know, when I was younger, I would be like that. But now that I'm not competing against anyone when I'm doing art, I've just always wanted to, I guess, be like the best version of me.
Yeah.
And
but
like,
even
just,
then, in like say going to music, it's interesting how you didn't necessarily apply that to music right away, like in your taste or making it more particular, like to yourself. Like you said, like how you started was more so just like whatever was kind of popular, and then you slowly started to be like, but you said art was always kind of like that, like you were like, I wanted to stand out within this.
No, exactly. Like with art, like it was always different because it was just kind of like, I guess, a release. Like I've always been a very controlling, like I've always gotten straight A's. Like I was in like gifted, you know, gate or whatever. And, you know, like I've always been someone that's been, you know, wanting to, I guess, be the best, you know, in general. And so even in school, I would be the same way. Like I would always raise my hand, like, and I'm still the same thing. Like even in college, like if I'm in like an in-person class, which I can't wait to go to, like I'm always the first person to raise their hand. Like I can present first. Like I don't care about like being the first person, because like I like presenting myself in that way, you know what I mean? Like I like being like a leader in that. So like the same thing with like art, like I wanted to be like a leader in that and like show my talent and like show, you know, what I can do. So, and like same thing with music, like it was kind of different for me, because like most people get their music taste, I guess, in the beginning from their parents, and their parents listen to like, you know, whatever kind of music, and they're, you know, that's what their music stems from, and then they end up like finding their own thing. But like for me, it stemmed from me just listening to what was most popular, what everyone was listening to, and then me finding my own thing, which is like kind of different.
Would that be like high school, you'd say? Like, and also I would say like onto that, was it like, was your group of friends like that's something y'all stumble upon together? And then we could all like talk about that within EDM music and like that type of music, I guess, within that question. Like at what point was that, like late high school or early high school?
Yeah.
And was that a thing that like all your friends kind of got into at the same time, or was it some shit that like you just got into and you put them on, or like, you know?
Yeah, I guess with like specifically EDM, I started getting into it when I was like maybe 16. I started listening to like, you know, like kind of basic, like, you know, just what people were like the most popular, like Flume and Disclosure, and, you know, people like that, you know, really popular like that, and like, you know, Tiesto and stuff like that. But within that, finally, when I found a friend group that actually listened to it when I came out of high school, because I had a really bad experience at the end of high school where I kind of lost a lot of my friends because I realized that I shouldn't be in that friend group. But yeah, so like basically after losing everyone and like finding the people that I should be friends with, they all kind of like introduced me into that world. And I went to my first festival when I was 19 in 2017. So
then you would say like it kind of changed like your idea of it or whatever you're saying.
Exactly.
Like you got into it then, but it was maybe in the same sense, like in the popular sense.
Exactly.
Until after high school, and you met them, and then it was in the
yeah, like with the same thing with like regular music, where like I feel like it kind of happens with most people, where like when you get into a certain music genre, you start with the popular people, and then you get further into it, and you're like, oh, actually, this person that not a lot of people know is really dope, and like I like this person. But like I feel like you like when you like start to get like more familiar with the different music genres you're getting into for the first time, you like start to realize like, oh, actually these people that like don't have a big following are better than people that like have a huge following and like have all this popularity around them, you know, like, because I feel like they sometimes get a little lazy and they just like do their same style, where these people that like don't have a big following and are kind of starting out, they change their style so much because they're trying to start new things, but like, you know, like you kind of like fall in love with their different styles, so like it's nice.
Well, what about you, Marcia? What would you say about like, I guess, EDM music? 'Cause I mean, I was listening back to our pods somewhat, and I know we've talked about music and our influence, even in our careers, like when it came into us, what type of music influences were young. But I would say like, I know I've heard about rock in relation to you and like how that, like when that came in, but like dance and that sort of music, was that like a later thing for you, or was that like something that was like along with the early shit? You know what I mean?
I feel like if I'm thinking back on it, I think it was also kind of like one of those things where it was at least the earliest kind of like electronic music I can think of, like EDM-y style, is like Daft Punk. I remember listening to that on my mom's iPod. She had like Around the World and like a couple other just like classics that were I don't know, that I would just go listen to while we were
like what you would say, like the popular ones at the time. But like, how old were you? You had to be
like
young.
Satisfaction.
You had to be young, huh?
Satisfaction, like exact, like as far as young, how young was I? I think I was maybe like, I'm gonna say within the 11 to 13 range, somewhere in there. Yeah. You know, and that was probably like my first kind of like real like deep dive into it, that and whatever was on the radio, you know, like as far as popular at the time, and then kind of catching on with that. And then once I was in like 7th and 8th grade and I had a little bit more access to like YouTube, I feel like that was the time when I was able to see more music videos and listen to more music in general. And that's when I started getting into more like pop and like dance music, because it was also based off what was popular at the time, because, you know, off of even YouTube, like there's always just kind of like the
Okay.
the idea of like
on
algorithm.
YouTube, you discovered a little bit more past Daft Punk at the time, like just more similar shit like that, like the algorithm. Even though it was like basically like a starting point algorithm, like that early algorithm is what kind of put you on to new shit at the time.
That combined with friends and like friends like music
Yeah,
taste.
that's the next question I was gonna say. Like, at what point did it transfer to your friend group, or did you have homies that
Within
also listened to
seventh
the same shit?
With-
Same time?
Well, the thing was because I switched schools from 6th to 7th grade. In 6th grade, everything prior to 6th grade, I think like my music influence was more influenced by like my, like I mentioned before, like my older cousin.
But he into that too?
He actually like he had a pretty like broad range as well. Like he at the time was a little bit more centered towards like rock still, but like he would venture out a little bit. But it was also between him and like my aunt and my uncle. I listened to like, you know, different little bit of R&B, starting to listen a bit of hip hop as well, because like my friends in 6th grade were like putting me on to like Outkast a lot. Like a friend of mine was like super into Andre 3000, and he would like really just kind of introduce me into that. So like,
and I could see how like that's another thing we could talk about too. I guess I didn't think about that, how maybe our paths to it is different within that. Like maybe the way I like heard about it, like I'll say Outkast, they have some electronic influences in some of their albums where you could hear some of those sonics and be like, oh shit, if I like this song, like I might like other shit that sound like this. Like that's what made me think of that like for me, that might have been a lot of the pathway. But that's interesting because it wasn't really a direct pathway. It kind of stayed on the popular line because they're only sampling it, you know what I mean? In some sense, it's not like the fool who really like did it type of shit. It's just like they're like, yo, this is popular, like I'm gonna use some elements of this and this, and like, you know. But that's kind of how I got to learn about some of that shit, because I was like, oh, I like this, like keep doing this, you know.
Exactly. I feel like when I first got into, like for example, for like Outkast, when I got introduced to them was the most popular songs, you know, like I Like the Way You Move, like Roses, like Hey Ya, you know what I mean?
What's that one though? Bombs Over Baghdad is the one that reminds me of like that style, like hella that like that. It's like kind of like international underground. It's like hella fast, like that beat that I was just rapping to.
Okay. But what I was saying though is like that's how like I first got into it, but then like later with my friend who was like really into Andre, like he started introducing more into like the others, like their broader, you know, catalog. And so like that kind of helped me dip my toes a little bit into it more so. But then I switched schools, and when I switched schools I switched friend groups, like as a result of it, you know what I mean? Because like I was a kid, you know.
So the new friend group was into EDM?
They were into EDM, they were into like,
but did you get deeper into it then?
That's when I started like diving more into it. That's when I started actually like going into like dubstep and like listening to like that was a lot of like the YouTube deep diving days. I remember going on like the UKF. I think that was like the name of the
and this is what
the channel.
Would you say like you changed schools? So you say now this is like
this
15?
is La Mesa,
or you're like 14 then?
This is 7th and 8th grade. So this is when I was like
14, right?
Yeah, 13, 14.
Because 7th is like you gotta be 14, not like 12, 13 no more.
Yeah. 7th and 8th grade I was like 13 and 14 because I was like 15 for a freshman. But there was like
that's cool.
Going on the deep dive of dubstep was fun. Cause
now you got me thinking, because I'm trying to think that era is almost like a fever dream. You know what I mean?
It feels like a fever dream, bro. I feel you.
Right? Like I'm like, damn, I remember that though. Like I remember like when I first heard like, what was that shit called, like Dead Mouse?
Dead Mouse was so lit.
I think that shit was kind of like my first like shit that kind of got me to be like, this is like a thing. Like I want to know what this is. But I don't, at that weird enough, at that time I feel like I don't know if I ever dove into it enough. Like I dove into like some of the songs, and then I like listened to like Chris Brown's album. Like there was like that one album like Fortune or some shit, and he had some songs like that. Rihanna had some songs like that. Like it was a lot of big songs that were like using EDM at the time.
I would just deep dive as far as like letting those YouTube playlists run when I would play like video games, because I played a lot of video games when I was a kid, and so I would but I loved it because like the dubstep music would just get me amped up, and so it just kind of it gives you energy, you know what I mean? It gives you like, it makes you.
That's weird.
Move.
I like that now. I'm actually looking back at myself like, like shaking my head, bro, because at that time I don't think I really liked that style of, like, I guess EDM. Like when I first heard it, like it was like the few songs that got to me was the ones that had like maybe like hella melodic shit into it. Like, it wasn't really even hip hop that sold it to me. It was like the melodies when it would be not as hard, which I'm looking back at myself like, that's whack. Like like later on I did kind of like some more harder shit, but at that time when I was young, I think I really just like Bulletproof and shit like that. Like I'm thinking back at my younger self, like, because it was like I remember those songs being like, oh shit, like, and then seeing people shuffling. Like that's what the main thing I remember is like shuffling. Like I remember trying to learn how to shuffle. Like,
yeah, I still can't. I still can't shuffle. I wish I knew how. I see people every single time I go to a festival shuffling, and I'm like, wish I could join you right now, but I'll just watch. Like,
that was the time, man.
It was a good time.
No,
I think I was just like a little young, and I still had music, but I think maybe that's what it was. I was a little young, so maybe peep this. Maybe my music was getting catered to me a little bit by older people. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't old enough to really pick my own music, so I feel like I listened to a lot of like a little bit older than me music at that time still.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? How you were saying like you were getting put on by your older cousin, by someone, you know what I mean?
For
like
me, it was like the switch. I feel like that when I got into that age is when I started getting more into like
your own like age group music.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I was still kind of young to still get like my age group music wasn't as dope yet, but it started to become dope. You know what I mean? Like a little bit like at the end of that, I started wanting to shuffle.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Did you ever like at that time, like, did you ever get hella into one of those artists in particularly? Because I feel like at those times when you're young, sometimes we sensationalize people. Sometimes, I mean, we be super fans of people. Was there anybody that you were just like, oh, this DJ, like Marshmello or somebody? Maybe he wasn't out then. Maybe he was too.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I was really into Flume in the beginning. Flume and Disclosure.
Before
I feel
they
like,
even had shit out. Like,
yeah, like back when, like, you know, a while ago, like when they first were like, I guess not really starting, but like when I first started listening to them, like,
what album was that? Because I feel like that's a perfect example. I started listening to them. I heard of them, but I started listening to them after they had that big, super popular song. Like, it was when they had that album with the purple thing on it. That's because, but that was when hip hop got me. Like, that was a much later instance where the hip hop involved with it got me to be like, let me see what's going on over here. But it was like Vic Mensa, the internet, all them. But I know they had an album before that was like worldwide type shit. It was like, you know what I mean? It was like the one right before that. I forgot what it's called.
I know, I forgot to actually. I haven't listened to Flume
I think that's the one you're talking about though.
But yeah, no, I know exactly. There is a song, the album before that. Okay, actually no, it's just called Flume. Because I was like, I feel like it was just called Flume.
It's
just self-titled. It's just called Flume. So I was like, I don't remember there being a title. But yeah, it's just called Flume, and that's where this one song, Holding On, which I didn't even know. It's like Holding On.
I know what you're talking about.
Okay, that song that became really
popular. They had a really fire
Insane.
video for that, right?
If you ever heard the song Insane, that's also another
You guys are
really
making me
good
have
one.
like a fever dream of that video.
Of the Holding On video.
Yes,
yeah, that one's really
I
good.
didn't know about that music, bro. And I remember I feel like it was
good.
like some homie in school or somebody showed me that like they listened to indie music. That was a thing. And before this, and then they showed me that video and they were like trying to put me on.
Yeah, because Flume
like,
in this time was indie. Like Flume in this time before like his other albums and like Never Been Like You or Never Be Like You. That one really big song that came out on the radio. Before that song came out, when this like self-entitled album came out, he was really small. And I remember I was really into him, and like also Disclosure too, when they had like that's before Latch with Sam Smith.
That's ill though.
Yeah,
the
before
fact that like, you were in there,
song,
that shows me that somebody around you was trying to put you on.
No,
you know
I
mean?
put myself,
or
like,
you were just like had an inclination to want to like really know. Because Disclosure is like, I would consider like OGs of that type of music, right?
Oh yeah. Disclosure is amazing. Like Disclosure, like I still have yet Flume and Disclosure I've still have yet to see in live. And KAYTRANADA is one of the people that I've also started listening to around that time, like probably around like 2015. 2015 before he came out with even 99.9%.
Because they shouted him out. That was
Yeah.
really sick. Like on 99.9, they have the whole clip of like them talking on the radio to Pharrell about him. Like it's just like shouting
Yeah,
him out.
because they
Like,
knew that he was gonna
that
glow
shit's
up.
so
Like
crazy.
they knew he
That
was
was
gonna blow
so
up.
funny.
Like
That was
he's
such a funny clip.
yeah, he just
They're
Oh
like-
yeah. I know.
yeah, he's like, yeah, I know it is. I know it is.
like they just knew, like they could just tell, and I could tell, like when I first started listening to him when he like came out with like Be Your Girl and stuff like back in 2015, and then when he came out with 99.9% in 2016, I just felt absolutely in love, and like I was like, okay, and from then I had yet to see him live all the way up until last year, which is crazy. I've been listening to him since 2015. I didn't see him live until 2021, and I was gonna see him live. It was the April of 2020, and I had tickets since January, and then March everything happened and the tour got canceled. So,
I feel sad.
yeah.
That's how it happened to me with Snow Allegra. I was gonna see her like way back towards the pandemic, and then had to like couldn't
Everything
go no
got
more.
canceled. Yep.
KAYTRANADA I've seen a couple times in my life.
I know. I remember you telling
That's
me.
probably been some of the dopest sets in my
I cried
life.
when I saw him last year. I cried.
That one I feel like was, I don't know, it was really cool to see. It was a unique set that I saw when I saw him recently. It was at Coachella. It was kind of in a tent. It was an interesting tent though, so I feel like he didn't
was it
have his full.
2019?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I feel like he didn't have his like full like wild out set though. So I was kind of like, I feel like it just, but
it was lacking.
he was doing something for the environment. You know what I mean? Like I felt like it was purposeful for like where he was at. Like it was like some shit I never seen him do before. But I feel like I have seen him before a couple times. The first time I seen him, it was when I was like young, bro. It was my first festival. I went to Camp Flognaw. I was, how old was I? Probably, bro. I had to be. It was 2016, I think, or 2017.
Yeah, so you're like
it was
18,
a little
19.
Uzi and Chance the Rapper, so I was like 19,
Yeah.
20, like at that time. And I remember definitely seeing KAYTRANADA. He was the closing set, and then the other closing set was like Lil Wayne on the other side. And I was kind of hyped to see Lil Wayne. That was a fucked up part. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't really want to miss Lil Wayne, bro. But I was kind of like, he brought out Chris Brown. I fucked up a little bit, but I didn't really fuck up because that album had just came out, bro. It came out like a little bit ago, 99.9. And I was like so into that shit at the time, bro, that I was like, I was trying to be front row. Like I was turned up. And then I remember all of a sudden Anderson .Paak came out in a hoodie. They didn't know it's him. They did glowed up. I ran to the front with the homie Nick. Shout out Nick. We seen him. We were turned up. We were like the main ones right there, just like down to go see him, like just on our own shit. We
Right.
started like a dance circle a couple times, like have people around us. It was just like probably, I think
It's just
that was
all
like
good vibes.
that was the thing.
That's
Like I
why
learned
love
at his set, it was like
sets
it was
every
all
time.
good vibes. I would say at Coachella, everybody
Everyone.
looked a little bit out of it though. So I was a little bit like, it was confusing. I was walking around like I was trying to like start the dance circles up, but like everybody was a little like on their own vibe. But it was the late in the night. So he went on at like 12 o'clock or something, right?
And what day was it?
The last day of the festival.
Okay,
the
then
going
that makes
home
sense.
day. You know what I mean?
Then that makes sense. Yeah, I could see people being out of it.
It was, yeah, it was. I definitely for that set. Even I was kind of tired for that one at that point.
Yeah. The only DJ I've ever met in person and like actually got to talk to was Troy Boy, which is one of my favorite DJs. I wish that I would trade that for KAYTRANADA though in a minute. I'm not gonna lie. Like, sorry, Troy Boy, if you ever see this, but I would definitely trade that. But no, like it was really nice. I
Like I knew exactly where that one.
But I met him at this festival that will never happen again because they never announced it, so I guess it's just dead. But it was a festival called Serenity Gathering, which is really nice. It was up in Northern California, like kind of like next to Yosemite, but like a little more east or a little more west. And
wait, what is this again?
it was a festival.
This is the first one you've been to?
No. Like this is where I met
you
Troy
met
Boy.
Troy Boy.
Yeah. So when I went there, it was like
So
a camping
you're
festival.
older than, at this point in time.
Oh no, this was when I was like, this was 2019.
Oh, okay.
So this was a couple of years ago. Like, oh damn, almost 3 years ago. Like in a few months it'll be 3 years ago, which is so weird. But yeah, it was a few years ago, and it was like a camping festival for 3 days. It only was $100 for 3 days camping, which is crazy. but it was really small. It was really intimate. I really loved it. And like, because of that, where the artists actually like had their own like green room, it was a green tent. And it was just like all these tents that were by the stages. So like, it was very easy to just walk up to them if you wanted to. And like, there was security, obviously, like fencing and stuff. But after Troy Boy finished his set, me and my friend went up to this tent. I mean, like went up to like where the security was, and we were like, hey, we're really big fans of Troy Boy. Like, it would be so amazing. We could just like say hi. Like, we don't have to like, you know, like make it a big thing. Like, it would just be like nice to like, you know, just like let him know our appreciation, let him know how much we like, you know, appreciate his music and what he does and his stage presence and everything. And so we talked to the security guard, and like he was so nice, and he was like, okay, I can't let you guys in, but I'll let you guys stand here, and if someone from his team comes by, you can talk to them, and if they say you can come in, then you guys can come in. And I was like, okay, cool. So we were like there for probably like maybe 30 minutes at the most, and we're standing there and we're waiting for him, and we finally, like, this person comes out, and I think it was his manager or like his director or like someone that was like big. And like, as he's walking to this truck to like get stuff, the guy walks over to us and like, okay, I didn't think he was gonna come out, but he's like, but that's his manager. Or like, it was like his manager or like his director, like something like important, like really important. And he's like, so if you want to get in, ask him, like he's the best person. And so we walk up to him and we're like, hey, so we just want to let you know, like, you know, we really like Troy, but we just wanted to let him know how much we appreciate his music, and like how much, like, you know, like the different music like that he's put out means to us, and like how it's just, you know, like inspired us. And like, you know, my friend at the time, and still, he is into music and he wants to create his own music, and how like that's inspired him and like the different music that he's made. And so he was talking to him about that, and he was like, okay, like, yeah, you guys can come in, like it's just you two, right? We're like, yeah. And so we go in and we meet him, and we're both like freaking out, and we like talked to him for a minute, and I was telling him about how like I introduced my dad to his music, and my dad loves him so much and also listens to him, and I was telling him about like we bond over that, and like, you know, he's really appreciative of
That's
it, and
crazy.
he's really
Your
nice.
dad listens to him?
My dad is really cool. My dad is the OG. Like, if you were to meet my dad, like, I wish I could live with my dad. Like, my mom, like I said, has always been a single mom. Like, my mom and my dad broke up when I was young.
He makes EDM, though. Like, I'm not going to do it, but, like, that's the part that I'm trying to wrap my mind around. I don't think I ever met a parents to be, like, on some, like,
my dad
like, I don't imagine him to be, like, soft, like.
My dad listens to Disclosure regularly, like, on his own. Like, he loves, like, just, like, different, like, it depends on what it is. Like,
he'd be at home headbanging, like.
Exactly. Like, exactly. He loves it. Yeah, he's a big fan. But yeah, he loves Troy Boy, and like.
Did he sign something for you?
No, but we took a picture.
Okay.
Yeah, we took a picture together, and I look really, you know, fucked up, but it's okay because we still took a picture. So, you know, I'm it's fine. It was a nice memory, but it was just nice to be able to like talk to him and like, you know, just like tell them how much we like appreciate it. Because like that's what I love about artists, and like being able to like go to their shows where it's more intimate and be able to meet them, just to be able to let them know like, hey, I just love your stage presence, I really like what you're doing, keep doing you. Like, we don't have to take a picture, we don't have to like, you know, like, and he was nice enough to be like, do you guys want a picture? And like he said that, and that's why we took one. But I didn't even have to ask for that. Like, I was like, you know what, honestly, like it was just nice to like show my appreciation, which I would love to do with a lot of the artists I listen to, like with like Thundercat and stuff. Like, if I were to meet him live or like someone live, like I would just want to let him know. I ran into him
in Vegas, but I just was like a little scared. I seen him.
Yeah, but see, if I were to see him live, or see him in person, just like out and about, I wouldn't be like some fangirly, like, oh my god, like, oh, it's so nice to meet. Like, I wouldn't be like some like, I would just be like, hey, it's like, it's so nice to meet. Like, I just want, you know, like, you know, I just really appreciate your music, and I just love like what you put out there, and I love your style, and like, you know, just like what you do, you know, I just want to let you know, like, I appreciate you, and like that's it. Like, that's all it has to be. And I feel like anyone in that kind of interaction, especially being a celebrity where probably that happens a lot, would like respect that, where it's just like, hey, I just want to let you know, like, I appreciate what you do, and I'm a fan of what you do, so like keep doing you. Like, and that's what I would want to like say to a lot of the artists that I
sometimes
meet.
It's hard though. Like, I feel like you probably definitely saw that shit at your job. Like, sometimes like it gets difficult, like that the mood people are in, like if they want to hear shit like that. Sometimes like they want to be talked to or whatever. But
no, exactly. I feel like you have to feel it out.
Thundercat
for
is
sure.
somebody I definitely would do that for. I feel like his music is something that means something to me. But I was gonna ask Mauricio, have you ever been to like a rave or a concert specifically for that music when you were young? Or
no? I was young.
Or older, like, I mean, not young, but I mean, like, in the past type shit, like, young is a bad phrasing. Or have been.
Yeah, I've been to something dedicated to it. I've been to
like,
one.
did anyone ever hype you into that? You know what I mean?
You.
Like, the homies would be like, yo,
yeah,
like, there's
something
there's
that's
this
just
foam party
solely
going on.
EDM.
You, literally you.
Like, that's what I thought you were going to say. Like, I didn't know you were going to say that one, but that's what I kind of was like. But other than that, that's it?
Well, I mean, like, I've been to a couple festivals, and within the festivals they have like sections of like the EDM, you know, or like listening to artists
but like
EDM,
not in
but
SD or no shit like that, or S, just where you're at.
no dedicated
SB,
to like
SB,
Like
and
just
SB, I know
EDM.
they got a lot of them in SB, bro.
Yeah,
I would think
Sam
they would. I
Byrne?
would have think no Sam. What's it
Santa
called?
Barbara.
Santa Barbara.
Oh, I thought you meant
I would have
San
thought they would have
Bernardino.
been convinced you to go to a rave out there.
there's a lot of house parties. I don't go to much raves.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like there's not that
That's
many.
true. Did you go to
in
like a club? But you weren't
Santa
old enough,
Barbara.
huh, to go like out though. Huh? You weren't 20, like one.
Dude, my fake ID got confiscated like the first weekend I tried to use it there.
Because I know like they would play that type of
Literally
music
the
out there.
first time, dude, it was kind of.
That's why I never got a fake ID, because everyone around me kept getting theirs confiscated. I'm like, why am I gonna pay $60 for something that's just gonna get taken away?
Damn, that would have been
Like,
popping
what's
though.
the point?
It only got taken away here though, but when I was living in New York, worked every time. I used it for about like a year and a half of,
I
or
feel
like
like
a
they
year
don't
maybe,
care as
because I
much
caught
out
it a little
there.
bit later. But they cared, but I think what it was that because the state that I got was. Shit, I don't remember.
Oh, it was like
I
a
wanna
state
say-
like that, Virginia.
Yeah,
like,
it was like
Massachusetts.
I think it was like a Delaware or some shit. Like it was like one of those. It's like next to New York, so it's like
that makes sense.
it's like semi. Or I
So,
think it might have been Connecticut.
They're just unfamiliar.
Oh, that's even better if it was Connecticut.
I think
because that's right next to that door.
I think so. I think it
That's
was
a
low-key
neighboring-
Connecticut. And
Okay, yeah, that's a
Okay,
neighboring
okay.
state.
So
that
they-
would make sense.
Exactly, and like I had my shit memorized, like, and it was a good fake. Like it scanned, like it was very well
Out
made.
there was
Shout out
no
to
raves?
the dark web.
Did you turn down any raves down there?
Huh?
Do you turn down any raves down there in New York? Like any of them you were like, nah, I'm good. I'm chilling tonight.
Low key, there was like a couple. There was good like big rave festivals that would go on there, and I had friends that would go to it. But
And you
I
were
was
just like not interested.
for the
Did
most
they
part
tell you
broke
about it?
in New York. Like,
Do you remember at all what they
Like
told
in-
you about it?
what?
Do you remember at all what they told you about it?
Yeah, that it was a lot of fun. That they would just be wilding out. They would, of course, come back like off of hella drugs. Like they would be off of like neon shit and like
They all dressed up. Cool.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
you know what's funny is
Man,
like
I'm surprised you didn't get hyped to go.
I was down to go. I just I
Oh,
said,
like that's
couldn't-
what you were saying. Like they weren't down really at the time. It's
No,
for you
I
to-
couldn't afford. Like I was in New
It
York.
cost hella bands to
Yeah,
go.
it cost hella bands to go for the most part to
Damn.
like because they would go to the big ones. They would go
Alright,
to the
we
ones
can
that
talk about that then. You think in Cali it's like cheap to rave?
I
to
think
go out.
I think it's not cheap.
Depends.
It's still now,
Well,
but
to go to
it's
a
li-
festival,
it's a
it's
little
not
bit.
cheap.
It's a little bit cheaper, but I think also what it was that like I wasn't working at the time.
Oh,
really.
got you.
Like
got you,
I was
got
in
you.
college.
It was just college,
like,
college vibes. Never
yeah,
mind.
you know,
never
it was
mind.
like just kind of
original
there
college
for
vibes.
like, yeah,
like first starting college vibes. I get you. Get you.
exactly. So it wasn't more. Like,
I guess I'm just thinking of like, cause like we subbed to Brianna. Then we could say like I was gonna ask you about what was your first festival like. You know what I mean? Which what I would think, or first not festival, first like rave or EDM shit like that. Which
Yeah.
I would say would be like probably. I think I remember you telling me you had a much earlier time in your concert going experience.
Yeah, I mean, it was my first concert in general. Like even the first actual festival I went to was called this thing called Moon Tribe, which they still do. I really want to go to again. I just need to like find out where it's gonna be. It's one of those raves that still is happening, where it's like kind of like how a lot of them were in the 90s, where one person or like a certain amount of people have the location and they send it out to those people who then sends it out to some people who then sends it out. Like it's like a phone tree kind of thing, so that it's not anywhere online. Like they might have like a Facebook like post group kind of thing, but other than that, it's not anywhere online where like you can buy tickets and stuff. It's like $10 when you like drive in your car, and you basically like, it's all different locations. But the location I went to when I was 18, like freshly 18, it was probably like, I want to say maybe September or October of 2016, when I like after I turned 18. we went all the way out to like somewhere out in the desert, like kind of like going on the way to Vegas, but not all the way to Vegas. So like maybe 2 or 3 at the most. I would say like 2.5 hours on the way of like going to Vegas. There was this like turn off point that you would get off, and eventually you would just drive out. I remember when we drove, and that's what my friend told me happens every time. You drive out where it's just nothing, and you're like, did I get the wrong address? Because you're just driving away, and you're driving away from the road, and you're seeing like civilization, and you're just driving out to nothingness, and you're just wondering like, are you going the right way? But you keep driving, and it's just like this random road that's just off in the side of this desert, and you keep driving, and then eventually you start seeing lights like far ahead, and you're like, oh, okay, there's people. And then you get to there, and it's like this whole festival setup thing, and like it's there's like I think 3 or 4 different DJs that created it, and they all have the name Moon Tribe in their name. And one of the only one that I know off the top of my head, her name is Della Moon. Have you ever heard of like that DJ? Her name is Della Moon, like, but her full name is Della Moon Tribe. And there's like a few other people that like it's like something Moon. I forgot what their names are, but
well, that's the part about it that's tripping me out, that it's not like a festival where they do other DJs. It's like them that throw that shit. Like you coming to see that group.
Well, not necessarily, because they are the ones that founded it.
Oh, but other people still perform.
Other people still perform.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
I was making sure that part.
Yeah,
I was like, it would be crazy if people
it
just
would be
put
cool.
up only to see them.
But actually,
Go to
though,
all
that
this
is
crazy
kind of
shit. That'd
true,
be
because
pretty
it's
dope, though.
partly true, because one of them every time at least performs.
Okay, but
So it's at
they
least
stay a
one
part
of
of
them.
it though.
Yeah.
See, that's
like
the
there's
shit
at
we
least
could do,
one
bro.
of them,
Low-key.
one or two.
Yeah.
Like
I feel
sometimes
like you'd
there's
be on that.
multiple.
Low key, like
I'm
you'd
down
be
for that
like,
shit.
nah,
Sounds
like I
dope.
just want my grandfather's set. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it was
Have a residency.
But yeah, it was super cool, and like that was my first one, and I remember like I ended up doing like acid at that festival, which is one of my first times ever doing that.
I want his house burnt to the ground. I want to go to the middle of the night. I want to piss on his ass.
that wasn't the one I was trying to play.
Like, what?
That was the one I was actually trying to play, but
I see some motherfucking shit.
why's that high pitched? Actually, I must have pressed the button.
There was this guy, there was so many people that were dealing drugs, but there was this one guy that was like friends with one of my friends, and he was like, okay, if you want, like I'll sell you 2, like he had like a dosage thing that had like acid where it was like the droplets, you know, and he was like, I'll sell you 2 of those for $5.
Pretty
I was
good.
like,
Pretty
the
good pricing.
Yeah, I was like, what? So I only wanted 1. Like he first was like, oh, it's like 1 for
Like
$5.
Wendy's.
And I gave him like a 5, and he was like, honestly, I'll give you 2 for $5. And I was like,
It's
I don't know if I
Carl's,
want
Wendy's,
to. I was kind of nervous. I was like, I don't know.
any
if I,
fast food place
exactly.
in
He was like,
America.
do you want a He was like, do you want a supersized 2 for $0?
Yeah,
like, I'll
that's any
supersize your
drive-through
meal.
you go to. Yeah,
Like, I was
2
like,
Special
what?
promotion going on. 2 for 1.
Yeah, exactly. Like a BOGO. Yeah, I did not know. So I ended up just doing it. So he like dropped both on my tongue.
It's called, what was the name of the festival?
Moon Tribe.
It's called Moon Tribe.
Yeah,
bro.
yeah.
Come
We
on.
got another one
for real.
I would definitely do that at Moon Tribe.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
You kind of have
Sorry.
to. It was my.
I've
And it
never
was
been
my
though,
first.
so I don't know.
It was my first one, and I was like, it's my first festival. Like, I'm gonna have fun. Like, I'm a wild out. So I did that. Ended up doing Molly too, and like I just.
How
it
long?
was a
How
lot.
long was the festival? 2 days? 1 day?
It was 2 days, but I only stayed for 1.
Gotcha.
So you
Yeah, I
candy
only
flipped
stayed for
on that
1.
one day that you were there.
Yes.
Crazy.
Yeah, and I drank.
wild.
And it was your
and I
first
drank a
one.
lot too.
So that's what I'm saying.
because
look at the
before
different
that
starts. You
point-
started off on like ready to go to the next
Okay,
one. Like,
but before that point, I was a degenerate. So even before I went to festivals, I would like, I didn't candy flip, but I would like do Molly and drink all the time. So like, it wasn't that big of a deal for me. But like doing the
feel
acid
that,
on top of it, and plus just being in that environment, it was.
I feel it though. I
It was
mean, I'm
definitely
not
a
gonna
lot.
say I didn't try Molly before I went to that experience. Like I had, but it wasn't like a thing. I guess I think I just like tried it, like on, like I don't want to say on accident, but like, you know what I mean. It wasn't like
Right.
that idea of it didn't really come into me before. So same, but then later on, you know what I mean. I understood it for what I guess that was, like how it has to do with that shit.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say like that was much later on for me, like when I understood what it has to do with that. And even then it was still in the sense of like what Mauricio was talking about at like the festival, where it's like they have some EDM and shit within the fest, but like it's not immersed. Like I hadn't really understood what it meant in like I still haven't been to like a festival where it's like all EDM.
All EDM, yeah.
But
it's
like,
a lot.
but like I start to understand what it meant. Or you know, from going to certain sets and like, we know what I mean, like what people do. Like it's a culture, bro. Like they got movies about that shit. Like people like the shit in the 90s and shit like that. It's just some shit I guess I wasn't into from the get go. So it's like something that I was always like, like,
yeah,
I kind of get it.
Well, the thing about it that I feel like is definitely just wrong and like just like a false idea on it is that it's all just about drugs and stuff. And like what I've noticed with it is everyone that's there, whether they're on drugs or drinking or like whatever, even just sober, a lot of people who go sober, is everyone there just has good vibes and everyone is like so positive and nice. And that's why I fell in love, like with Moon Tribe, I fell in love with it a lot because it was like a very small, intimate kind of festival, which was fun. But my first festival that was like more important, that was bigger, when I actually met people, was 2017. I went to Escape, which was like a Halloween festival they have with Insomniac, which is like a very popular record label. And like it was intense. It was a lot to take in, but on top of that, everyone there was just so nice and genuine. Like I met so many people there that were just, just like dancing and like just like, I think if we want to get deep,
like for like a sec, I think that there's an idea that comes with the scariness of people possibly being there and being vulnerable and being on drugs and shit like that brings out a certain, you would think like a bad thing about people, but kind of brings out a nice thing about people because they kind of want to take care of each other.
No, yeah, and
you know what I mean? Like they're kind of like, fuck, they kind of know like everyone is gonna be here on this tip. Like no one wants to run across somebody that's gonna make them have a bad vibe, so they kind of go the extra mile somewhat to be like, nah, like if you see somebody kind of like this, like help them out, like don't be fucked up.
No, exactly, and it all depends. Like I feel like people kind of like fail to take into account that like drugs aren't gonna make you a good or bad person. It depends on who you are before that. So like if someone going into that as a caring, nice person, doesn't matter if they're on drugs or not, they're gonna care about someone else that's like obviously in like pain or in trouble and like needs help.
Facts.
But if someone's a bad person or a shitty person and they're on drugs, they're not gonna give a fuck and they're not gonna care if like someone's I think that's why like hurting on the floor. Kind of like like it depends on who you are before. And like me personally, like I've always been like the mom friend. I've always been someone that's like taking care of everyone, like making sure I get water for everyone and like whatever. And so if I see someone that's like hurting, which has happened many times before when we've gone to festivals where it's all EDM, and I've seen someone that's like obviously rolling really hard and they're not able to handle it and their friends are nowhere to be found, I help them and I like, help them over if they need to like go to a trash can, I like throw up or like help them get water and like, like I just want to
essentially
like,
a lot more
help
people
out.
like that. I feel like at those type of things
than
it is at other shit where people are doing the same shit.
No, yeah.
You know
like
what I mean?
I've noticed, like I personally don't go to a lot of like hip hop and like rap shows, but my friend who does, Kay, she shout out Mad Honey, she goes to a lot of those shows and she tells me like there's like an obvious difference. Like she'll like find a lot of people that are like really chill and cool at those shows, but like she'll sometimes notice that there are people that just like she can tell like in a crowd where everyone's like getting really cramped and some people are not comfortable and people won't give a fuck and they'll just like keep pushing, and it's like you can tell I'm not comfortable, you can tell this person's like struggling, like why are you still pushing? Much less of that
I've noticed at least at EDM.
Yeah, and like EDM they don't really do that.
In my account though, my first time going to some shit like that has been, I feel like I've seen KAYTRANADA at a festival or two, and I've seen like, I'm trying to think if I went to Hard Summer after I went to Hard Summer was my first one I've ever been to where it's like where there was like other fools like there. But I've been to like, well, I went to like see some for a little bit too. So like there was like Big Show and I saw like Dylan Francis there and like John Tino Khan. That was like cool because it was like only EDM at the time. But when I went to Hard Summer, it was for reals. Like I feel like I seen a little bit more like what it was type shit, but it was kind of a mix. So in my regard, I saw like a mix of like people that were there for like the other artists, you know what I mean? Like, but it wasn't that many big other artists that were there. The biggest other artists I can remember there were like Kid Cudi and like Juice WRLD and Gunna. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like huge people. Like they were huge, but it wasn't like a massive amount of people. I guess like on the hip hop side, it was like a couple, and then everybody else was big EDM artists.
Well, the only thing though about Hard Summer is it's very bro-y, so I don't think it's a very like good.
It is very bro-y.
Yeah, it's not a good like representation of all of the festivals.
That's definitely how I got put on it, because it was kind of like similar to Coachella.
Very frat housey. But like
I feel like even then though, it was kind of like at Coachella I saw more because everything's separated. I feel like it was like that's why I was trying to wonder if it was before or after, I guess, because at Coachella I feel like I seen a bit more taste of it because there was like sections and shit. You know what I mean? Like, who did we see? Aphex Twin. That was some shit. Like that kind of let me know, like, because he's like, I didn't know at the time that he was one of these people that like helped make the machines that made like EDM and shit like this, and like he's like a DJ, but he's also a DJ that's like a scary ass DJ. So like he puts scary ass visuals on the screen, and like his music is really like intense and like you know what I mean? And like I just remember for sure being in there and being like, I don't know how much more of this I could take, but I also understood the value in it when I was there. Like I liked it, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't like I was there like this is bad. I remember enjoying it.
It's kind of a release. Like that's why like I first got into those dubstep shows and stuff, because like I'm still not into mosh pits when people like, you know, go really hard and like push against each other. Like I'm not into that, but like I will headbang and like, you know, go really hard at like those like really hard grimy shows, because like it's a release, you know. Like I feel like you know, it's a release from like your daily life to just like go hard on that. Kind of the same way with like when people listen to like really hard rock and like metal kind of music. I was about to say,
it's like one thing we listen to a lot of, I don't know if you've ever like JPEGMAFIA. You ever listen to JPEG?
Oh, okay, yeah, I've heard of them.
We're both into JPEG a lot, and like when the more we talk about all this type of music, I guess that's somewhere where I feel like all this shit collides in like a really great way that I feel like we've all been like hella into, at least me and Mauricio, where it's like one of those things of like I've loved his music and seen him perform in different like arenas and shit like that, and it's kind of like, I don't know, like, I like the way he incorporates that, what you're talking about, like that heavy rock, like that release. You know?
Exactly.
I think that's like the best part of like that kind of like high tension music of like whether it be punk or like EDM or like, you know, which is kind of like the borderline of what we're straddling with both of these, of being like, you know, the general just EDM or like more of like the punk side with JPEG. But I feel like both of them kind of go into this like something, you know, that we touched on before, just like the feeling of just like not ultimate release, but like a sense of just release. You can let go, you can just let go and enjoy the moment. And it's one of those things where like I feel like that's why I largely like that kind of music in general. It's just like that high energy music, is because like I feel a lot of the times it lets me let go. It amps me up to let go sometimes. I feel like, and that's one of those things where like with music, like music is like sometimes measured by how much it can make you dance, right? Or like the rhythm to it, like how it affects you, makes you move, right? And I feel like with that style of music that's a little bit more faster tempoed and has a little bit more like intense, call it melodies or whatever, like those kind of lend itself to push you to kind of like let go more, or like it pulls you in more, so it has to like pull you out more. And
I know what you're saying. Like even like on the transitional part, like I feel like they have, like that's where they have to win me over, and where they have a lot of work at, is that they might get you going hella good, but it's like in that transition and let you down. Like how they do that is sometimes what defines like the different artists, and especially like talking about Flume, these other fools. Like that's where I feel like they put their signature mark on, where it's like when they that little transition, it's like a way that they do the transition that's like signature to them, like the way the singer's voice is edited, like the way it's pitched, you know what I mean? Like it kind of sounds like, oh, that's the Flume way they do it, or like that's the, you know?
Even from the reverse side of just getting into it, like I think the fact that sometimes it is so intense like kind of is a barrier for some folks that like aren't into like EDM or punk music. Just the fact that it can be so intense that transition in itself, like
they don't wait for it to drop.
It's not so much for the come down, it's the come up, like, that they can't handle.
Yeah, like that shit smokes them too much to wait until like when it's time to like, you know what I mean? Some people don't make it to the like, I get what you're saying. I know what you mean though, huh? That's cool. Damn.
It's just interesting.
But
I want his house. I see some motherfucking shit.
I don't know why this shit's been so high pitched today, but we'll figure that out.
I don't know. I feel like it might be one of the. I feel like it might be one of these now. I don't know.
It's enough. You can check it out. I'm not gonna need to do it right now.
I don't want to play with it.
But one thing we should talk about, I feel like a little bit, because I mean we've talked about the EDM shit. We've talked a little bit about other artists like KAYTRANADA within the genre. And we talked about, I mean, we could, before we get into like, you know, other deeper shit like Euphoria that's what we want to talk about, we could talk about at least some artists that we fuck with in the genre. I mean, we didn't really get into our personal.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
well, definitely
I mean,
like KAYTRANADA for sure. I feel
like once we got grown and once we went to our own shit, like who do we be like, this is someone I think is the GOAT in this genre? KAYTRANADA for you?
Yeah, for me, KAYTRANADA is definitely one of them. I really like Medicine. He is another, like, I guess in the way with like KAYTRANADA, where like he can be really chill, but he can also be like more like housey and like vibey and like harder, like depends. But he's really good. And then I also like a lot of like more like grimy stuff. Like I like TVBOO is really good. Who else? Blunts and Blondes.
And I thought of a fire transition. We'll still talk about this, but I remembered what we need to talk about. And I might have a question with it. We need to talk about art. And I want to know if when you paint and all this, as you get talking about painting, do you listen to this type of shit?
Honestly, no. When I paint, especially recently, I have to like almost exclusively watch BoJack Horseman.
We'll see. We'll get into that. I still want us to share like who our artists are, but that's dope.
I always just watch
like,
BoJack Horseman, and it helps
that seems
me
like
paint.
that must have like some more to it. Like, but I know what you mean because you know what you mean because Mauricio has seen this of me. I don't know if he remembers this, but different times when we'll be recording, like in the stew, I've definitely put BoJack Horseman on a mute.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done this a couple different
it's
times.
Just my it's just my. I think it's because it's my comfort show.
I don't never watch it not on mute, but like shout out to Mac Miller watching movies with the sounds off.
It not on mute?
Nah, like that's something I really believe in on certain shows. Like certain shows, I really just don't.
No, you should.
Like
watch
I just watch them for what they got on the visual.
No,
like when I'm doing some other shit.
You should watch it. It's so. It's just. It's
but I
one
know
of
it's
those
dope though. I might have watched a few episodes, but
it's very dark though. Like you have to be ready.
That's
like
why,
the beginning
like,
seasons are fine,
I put
but
the
like
captions on though. That'd be the best part. Like when we just post up and start reading for a little bit. We're just like, wow,
really
like
dark. Especially the last season. Like, oh, the last.
Like, why'd
season
that horse say something so mean to him? Like,
yeah, no, it's one of my favorite shows though. Like, it just like, I don't know. Like, I guess it's just one of those shows that paints depression and anxiety and just all these different like just mental issues and disorders and stuff in such a realistic way, where there's so many shows that try to do that and they just fail and they're so bad and they just seem like they're just trying to do that and it just doesn't seem realistic, whereas that
BoJack
show
Horseman is real. It's like you watch that when you are
realistic.
depressed.
It's that's
the way I feel about that show. It's like it's an actual depressed show. Like, you know what I mean? Like I watch that shit and be like, damn, like all right. Like,
it's very depressing, and that's why it's so surprising to me that it's just like my comfort show, but it's become like my Office, like The Office.
I feel that. Oh, The Office
like,
is
you know,
like
it's like that. Where you know you watch that show to fall asleep, like The Office kind of shit. Like that's how I feel with BoJack Horseman.
It is like that.
I watch that to fall asleep because I've seen it so many times, but I've seen it with volume.
I got a new one like
and
that.
I know
I got
everything.
a new one like that. It's called. All right, well, there's two. Oh, one of them I think you might have put me on. Okay, I think I remember because I heard about it and then I was like, I'm gonna check this out. But I used to watch Emily in Paris on Netflix. That was a good one. It's a pretty good, like just watch on casual tip, fall asleep to it. You don't really gotta pay attention type of show. But the sex life of college girls. Wasn't you that said you finished that shit? It was on Netflix too.
I've never seen it.
I was like, I didn't watch that shit till somebody basically told me that I knew. Was like, yo, like I was telling some shows I watched and they were like, oh, like I've seen this, like I watched this show, and I didn't know. Like I was like, I seen that show, but I was like, I don't know what's good with it. Perfect show to watch on some bullshit.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's like it's like a good amount of drama. Like it's kind of like a soap opera, but not. You know what I mean?
Okay. Well, I guess though for me, like it's kind of different because like my comfort shows are shows that I've seen so many times.
Oh, you rewatch them?
Yeah, that I've rewatched so many times that I could like probably reenact a bunch of the
thinking of the
scenes,
style of the show.
Like,
You're thinking of like just
it.
like the comfort in the show.
Yeah, where like I know it so well, and like that's why I feel like BoJack Horseman. Like I probably watched that show, rewatched it because like I watched it since the beginning when it was first put out on Netflix back in like 2014 or something like that, and I every single time a new season would be put out, I would rewatch the first season and then watch the new season. And then when a new season would come out, I would watch from the first season to the new one, and I would always, and then even from that after it ended back in I
do
think
that with
2020.
Atlanta, but like,
yeah, I've watched it so many times. So it's like Atlanta. If you were to see Atlanta again, you know
I
it
definitely
so
do that
well.
to like catch
you
up.
just like
Yeah.
you know, you like fall asleep, like you know it already. Like if you saw the beginning seasons.
What about you, Munji?
I'm thinking about it a lot right now, honestly, and I don't know if I've watched any show more than like 3 to 4 absolute max, but like 3
Really?
times through in the past like 10 years or so. Like I remember when I was a kid, I used to like binge shows a little bit harder, but like lately I feel like I feel like I go through spurts of moments where I find comfort in a show. Because I was thinking about like what I would answer is like my comfort show right now, and my result would be what I was listening to at the or what I've been like finding comfort in at the moment. But I know and thinking to myself that shit fluctuates like a lot. Like I just don't like I rewatch a show. If I rewatch a show more than like once, honestly, if I rewatch a show more than once, that just shows that I fuck with the show. But if I rewatch a show more than twice, it means that like I'm like really into that show for like that moment. But like beyond then, I just go through like just different spurts of like just different show. Like I don't know, because maybe it's a result of there just being so much shit out there nowadays, or just so much stuff out there that nowadays that like I'm just like jumping from one show to another of finding different comfort. But like my latest one for sure has been What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, that show is so funny.
So funny.
It's so good.
So
the
funny.
New season's good too.
I saw the first time I watched it was one of those shows that I would watch and like kind of fall asleep to, just kind of having in the background, like kind of watching it every now and then just to catch a laugh here and there. But this time around I decided to like really kind of like watch it. It was so funny. It's so funny, so well made.
Watch more funny shows, man. I feel like I struggle to watch funny shows, especially probably when it comes to what you guys are saying, like the idea of like comfort shows and shows that I can watch like on repeat. I think funny shows are ones for me where it's like I don't maybe find a lot of comfort in them. I don't know why though. It's one of those weird things. Like I started to think about like I'm very much a This Is Us kind of guy.
Like a more dramatic. Well, you know, it's a good one I recommend to both of you who haven't seen it. I Think You Should Leave. It's on Netflix. It's very funny. It's kind of like
I've seen it. That's what I
so
yes. That's a skit
funny.
I
show,
think I've
right?
seen a little bit
Yeah,
of
it's a
that.
skit show. It's
That's actually
so
I think
funny.
I've shown
I
you
think that's what I was exactly about to say. I was like, I think
Very
you
good.
showed me the show.
Yeah, it's very
So
good.
so funny.
It's so funny. It's just so awkward. Like all of this, like every single sketch, like it starts normal, and then by the middle of it, you're like, what is going? And then by the end, you're like, this is just so
I know
cringy and
two
awkward.
shows
Like
like
I
that.
couldn't imagine.
I know
being in
two
that
shows that are like
situation.
that, but not really like. I feel like they're awkward, but maybe not cringy. But they're like very like you don't know like what the fuck's happening. Like all of a sudden it just changes up. All of a sudden, and it's on HBO. One of them is I feel like they discontinued this shit, but it's called Random Acts of Blackness, and it's like I think I tried to show you about it, bro. But like watch that shit, and I shit you not, the first season is literally crazy. Like each episode is like, it's kind of like little short stories, but the short stories are like Twilight Zone type episodes type shit, and like they just get like theoretical like on society type shit. But then on the other one, there's another one like that too. Fuck, what's the name of it? It's on HBO too though. It's called Woke, I think. Or some shit.
I've heard of it.
Or like Wokeness.
I've seen like an episode or two.
Yeah.
That one's
But I
sick.
haven't, like,
It started
gotten
coming
it.
on
Yeah.
accident. Like I was watching something else and then it just played after. And then I watched it and it was crazy. Like this fool was seeing shit going up the stairs and it was like everything becoming an animated object and it was being all like showing to like his
that's
conscience and shit. And I was like, damn, this is gonna be a dope show. Like I could see like each one being like, it was like little skits and like just on like wokeness, but like kind of like jokes and shit. You know what I mean? Like it was
I
like
heard
some
it's a funny show. Yeah, it's a comedy or comedy, but like drama. Like it goes
yeah,
on like some
like
deep
that
stuff.
shit was
Yeah.
a trip. I was like,
Yeah. There's another show on HBO that's really funny. It was because HBO has this whole side part that has BBC shows, which I don't know if you guys know, like the British channel, but I love British comedy. Like it's very dry, it's very witty, like it's very sarcastic. And there's this one show on there that they actually revamped and made in an American version, which I refuse to watch because I'm not a big fan of reboots. But it's called Ghosts. And it's really funny. It's about this couple that like the woman in the couple, she ends up inheriting this beautiful manor. Like they live in London, like it's all set in London because like, you know, they're from England, and like there's this whole this giant manor that she ends up getting from her aunt that dies, who doesn't have any other relatives, and like it's a really distant aunt, and she doesn't have any kids or anything, so she ends up getting this manor, and the manor has a bunch of ghosts in it, and she ends up having this near death experience where it makes her able to see all of them, and they all just like annoy her, and they're just like, it's really funny, like all of them end up having their own little backstories, and like she tries to find out why each of them are like stuck here, and like, you know, like it like kind of like has a little heart in it, but it's also like the root of it is just really funny because she's like, why do I hear these like stupid people, like they're all just like really annoying, like they just do these things to annoy her on purpose, and like it's really funny. But like, yeah, that show is good too.
Okay. It's interesting when you were saying that you find comfort, because it made me, when you find comfort more in like the drama like shows, because it made me think about like in the general aspect of like when I hop around from show to show, what is it that I like, and it made me deep thinker of like what am I, because one thing I do like watch a lot, even whether it be like on Netflix or like on my phone, just whether it be YouTube or like
when you want casual chilling,
casual viewing, is I watch a lot of stand-up. I watch a lot of
that
comedy.
about you. Like you put me on a lot of the funnier shows that I've like watched, like on like the comedy tip, like the like especially that one with Kid Cudi. What's that shit called?
Oh, it was that was
with those other people, like he's a guest host on
Weird Al, and it also had the other, what was it?
It's funny how I can hear the drum.
Oh, sorry, I was like I should tap in my microphone.
But you know what I'm talking about though, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the name of it. I can't blank out on the name. It was a great show
like
though.
Improv ass name.
It was an improv show. It was like a sketch comedy show that ran for like 6 seasons, and Kid Cudi was part of it. But they had like Weird Al, and they also had like another Reggie Watts, which was one hilarious.
Reggie Watts was the dude that you put me on from him. That I was
so
like,
funny.
Yeah.
But
Comedy Bang Bang.
That's the name.
What it's called. Comedy Bang Bang.
That's the name.
Oh, I think I've heard of that before.
Super sick show. Super sick show.
Kind of on some like I think you should leave vibes. Like
yeah.
But it has like a little bit more of a.
Damn, I'm gonna watch that show too. That's a show I watch again.
Rewatch. Yeah, I should rewatch that.
That's a rewatch. Like
low key, that's a really good show.
But see what I'm saying? That's a rewatch. But like I was saying, I feel like you're more inclined to rewatch shows like have that type of value in them. Or
as like a casual watch,
as just like casual, because I feel like that's rewatch casual shit. You know what I'm saying? Like you wouldn't rewatch some shit that's just like, you know what I mean? Like you don't rewatch the Titanic all day. Exactly. You know what I mean? Like you're not just like.
I like humor because it keeps it lighthearted. It gives me like something like that. But I feel like good humor is stuff that's based in like reality, which most stuff is like, you know how they say like every good joke has like some truth to it.
You know what I mean? Like it's casual listening, like reality, like
exactly. You know, and so like I like the humor and like the shows where you watch it and you can laugh, but if you like kind of take like a closer look to it, it's kind of like, oh, it's peeling back a layer, like on some South Park shit, you know, where it's like dark satirical.
But one
like,
show I was gonna say that's like the opposite of that, maybe, that I feel like I do watch on some shit like that, is shit like How to Make It in America, which is like an old ass show that I watch. It's like a Kid Cudi show. I didn't even think of it. It's on HBO, but it's like a drama. But it's like those short dramas sometimes be the ones that just like, I don't know, sometimes they can put a lot in them, I guess. And that's the part about them that makes me like watch them, like all the shit they capture in them. It's kind of like a time capsule. It's like, damn, you get to go back to that like era. I feel like that's the comfort part in it, I think, for me. Right. A lot of times it's like, or that whatever they're putting in the show, they just captured it so well that it's like it really transports you there. An old show like that I used to watch was 101. You've ever seen 101 with Kyla Pratt? I don't think a lot of people. It was kind of like a one-off show, but it was Ray J. It was in the one when they moved to like Venice, and that's the show I used to watch like that, because it was like one of those shows where they didn't have like a big set. You feel me? They would just be at like the same pad or like go out to the beach, but it was cool how the story progressed. Like the show started in them in Baltimore, and she was like a single child or whatever, and the dude was like a news anchor, and then all this shit happened like essentially with like the mom and different stuff, and then she was growing up, and eventually she moved because she grew up. But that was the hardest part about the show, was like they continued into the spinoff as she grew up to go to like college and move out with other homies. You know what I mean? So then she living in Venice with other homies at a pad, and it's just like lit though. Like that saga of the show was dope. And I remember Ray J being in there, and that's how I heard One Wish. And he sung One Wish in the show, and I was like, damn, this is dope as fuck. Like, I remember it being crazy, being like, what the hell? Like, he sung it like as if it wasn't him, though. Like, as if he was just a homie that could sing, like, at the homie's pad. And he was just like, yo, check this out. Right. I was like, whoa, this is crazy.
It always be dope kind of seeing, like, different artists when they get to feature into shows like that, and they get to either play, like, the character that's just, like...
The homie that kind of knows the music, like Drake and Degrassi, bro. That shit was dope. When he did his little performance and he like hard. Smoked it, and it was just like, yeah, I kind of got like he was like trying to become a rapper, like in a wheelchair, like
when Jimmy came up, bro.
But that was kind of hard though. Like in my head, like at the time being a kid, I remember his bars being kind of just like decent. Like, I remember them being like kind of like, watching on the show, being like, wow, like he could be a rapper. Like,
wasn't it? I remember hearing it off that documentary that he wrote the raps for his.
Yeah,
for
remember
the show?
when I sent you that? I didn't know that until I watched that doc. That like
was dope.
That it was more purposeful, I guess, than I thought. Like with his rollout to be a rapper, they wanted to do it mad earlier, and he was good on it because he was kind of just like, I don't know how I'm gonna do that. Like, you know what I mean? Because he's like, I do want to be a rapper, and I am on the show. And I'm just like, I don't know. They were thinking I gotta be careful on how we go about. You know what I mean? Portraying me doing it in here. It's already like a Nickelodeon show, like.
And even on some shit, like on some real shit, like low-key touching on like just his ability, like as a disabled person to show, like.
You know what I mean? I don't think he planned to combine the rap shit in it. I think that shows that it was kind of just like, all right, like this was the rap, like that adds to it. You know what I mean? Where he was just like, you know what I mean? Like it could be a touchy thing, but he's like, that'll just be dope or shit. Like, fuck
it was dope. No, it was amazing how that played out, and then how he ended up freaking like blowing up from
really then becoming like as being like, all right, I'm leaving this season, like I'm gonna go rap.
Do my own shit. Like, go blow up and be like the biggest star for a minute.
That's crazy. But yeah, so one thing I think before we get into like, since we already talked about show talk, we talked a little bit about painting. I did want to ask, I know you said you don't listen to this type of music and you watch the BoJack Horseman when you do paint, but do you ever listen to music? If not that, or have you ever listened to music while you paint?
I guess I do a little bit. Like I mostly watch shows while I paint, just because like a lot of times when I listen to music, I'm like focused more on the music.
Is it pitch quiet then? Like, is it just pitch quiet then, or the show is loud? Like, you put the show the volume
it pretty low. Yeah, I'll put the show like pretty low, so I'm just like focused on like what I'm doing. Like, I'm usually not like having too many things.
Do you ever paint off the show like Bob Ross? Like, you ever paint like shit that's on the thing, or not?
No, not on the show. I mean, I'll paint like I've painted like BoJack and like Princess Carolyn and like different characters and stuff that I've watched from like pictures of them, and like I'll like do like something different with it.
Play as a,
but
like,
yeah,
a vibe.
Visuals
They're
just
not
like in the background.
Okay.
Exactly.
Vine Tree Radio.
What inspires you the most when you're painting?
When it comes to painting, I guess just like, I don't really know. Like there isn't any specific, like I definitely like, I love the like cartoon and like whimsical kind of like aspect to painting, and like painting like, you know, just like kind of fun, surrealistic kind of things. But I guess the thing that like most drives me to painting instead of really inspires me is when I like really get into like low points where I'm just like, you know, just like really in my thoughts or my feelings or whatever. Like I kind of turn to painting as like, I guess like a release of that, of me just like, you know, just like trying to think creatively and just trying to like release the like tensions or different things, like negative thoughts or things that like I might be feeling, like it kind of gets released through painting. So I guess that's kind of like an inspiration for that. But there isn't like a specific like source or person that really like drove me into painting. I guess I just like kind of found it as like a comfort thing, like something that I just like use to like, you know, just like as a way to just like, you know, like I said, like as a release, like just a way to, you know, just kind of like get rid of all the like pressures and different things that I like might feel in like my daily life. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. I would say I can't draw, but I know Mauricio himself is someone who likes to draw, and I feel like use that shit as an outlet as well. I feel like that's something you guys can research on. I have used drawing as an outlet. I definitely have, like, at points in time. I definitely know that, like, when I'm not bored, but like, how do I say, like, maybe bored or don't have anything to do, I do use that to be creative, because I feel like that's just like something to do rather than just like sit there, like. And I feel like it's interesting to see, like, I remember in school I used to do that a lot, like I would draw more so, but like never really felt like I was like hella skilled at it, I guess, or like. But I remember when I was young, I tried to like look at a couple books and like get some shit off, but I think drawing was something I always kind of just like looked at, like freestyling, I guess. It was just kind of like something you go about regularly. You wanna let your dog in?
I think it was similar to both of you guys', I feel like, experiences. It's similar to you in the sense that it was just kind of just expression and comfort, like finding moments where I was comfortable to draw and kind of have fun with it. And I feel like most of those times when I was feeling the most comfortable to draw with it was when I was in school, just doodling. Like, my notebooks are covered in doodles, like along the edges, like, and like the margins, yeah. And like the back pages and shit like that, like, just because it'd give me something to do. But I feel like in those moments of like boredom, like you say, like even like my room is covered. If anyone's like seen my room, they'll see like post-its, or it looks like post-it notes, but they're receipt paper from back when I used to work at the Marriott, or as a bartender rather, and like they had like I would get the receipt paper on like super slow days when I was bored, and I would use that to doodle just because it was fun, it was comforting, give me something to do, express myself, have fun. Because like some I would use to like get like an idea off, but others I would just use as like, more often than not, like probably 75% of them were just bored doodles, like whatever came to the mind at the moment. And like in that, it was just, it's always been fun, and I don't think I've ever really considered myself like a good artist. Like honestly, most of my doodles are pretty trash because they're just that, doodles. But what I do feel like they are is that they're meaningful to me in certain ways, because like they did encapsulate certain moments and like certain thoughts. Like when I was, there's something about being bored and something about being like allowed to just kind of like go in your own little something about like finding like a gem in just doodling. Like sometimes that just little like what seems like chicken scratch could be like the deepest thing too, or at least to me it is many times. And so yeah, that's been my experience with drawing, and like the feeling of comfort with expression with it.
Yeah, and I feel like just as an artist, like in general, like you always think of your work as like just being like ugly or like whatever and like chicken scratch, but like, you know, to like some people that like can't draw and stuff, like it's artwork. And that's why I would think like a lot of like my artwork that like I'll make for my friends or that I'll make for myself or whatever, like I'll just like focus on the flaws, the parts that I don't like, and I'm like, oh, it looks like horrible, it looks shit, like, you know, whatever. But I feel like if you think about the positive side and think about like the parts that you do like, you're like, okay, actually this is like pretty decent work. And like that's, I feel like, even with doodling, like I started with doodling too, and like I would doodle my notebooks and stuff, but like, you know, like even those doodles, even though to you it might seem like you know, like nothing, like chicken scratch and like ugly, like to some people they might look at it and be like, oh damn, that's actually really cool, like that's actually really nice, you know, because they might not be able to do that, and like most people probably aren't able to do that. So like I feel like as artists it's really easy to like discredit yourself and be like, oh, I'm horrible and I'm not good and like my art isn't good compared to other people. Cause like you see these other people that like can draw photorealistically or like can like do these amazing things, you're like, I could never paint that, and like that's amazing and that's a great skill, but like most art is not like that. Like most art is doodles and like fun stuff,
I feel like even deeper than that, a lot of real art maybe in some sense has like feeling to it, or feeling behind it, and I feel like that helps us kind of transition to some other shit we wanted to talk about. Like I feel like that as a release, even in some sense, like I feel like art as a release and drawing as a release is something that kind of relates to music as a release, like in dealing with like being therapeutic and like dealing with like anxiety and all that shit. I feel like it's definitely something I do when I'm like stressed out. Being something, and kind of when you look at it in that regard, it ain't really about like how good you do it or whatever, you know what I mean? Sometimes it's about how well you convey the feeling. And sometimes at that, I feel like it'd be ill. Sometimes I look back at like what you were saying, like the journals and shit I have, and I'm really like, wow, like it really conveys like what the fuck I was going through at the time. Like, damn, you know, you see your shit, like, I'm going through whatever it was, I was going through it, or whatever it was, this was going on. Like, you know what I mean? I feel like that part about it is kind of the part they look for in art, like how well you're able to transfer like the feelings or the emotions to what you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I agree.
Shit's crazy.
Yes.
It's amazing to see how those feelings can be conveyed, though, because like as we draw them or as we feel them, they can be felt. But they, like, speaking of feelings, though, like I know that, you know, we've touched on it earlier with like talking about like BoJack Horseman, or even you mentioned like kind of like going through those depression. I feel like a lot of art is made during like these feelings of like deep emotion, with artists kind of going through distress and depressed and deep emotions like that. And I just want to get your perspective on those kind of perils and like how those going through those emotions pulls out something in the art sometimes.
I feel like it for sure always pulls, I feel like it always pulls shit out in the art in the way that like it like the same way we've been talking about, like it's released, therefore like it releases that shit you're going through. So like it's somewhere to put it that is not like, I guess, looked at as like negative or like a bad way or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like it's looked at like putting it within art is somewhere where like you can get fruitful things from it type shit, because other people can like learn from this or whatnot. But I feel like there's a push and pull within it, because once you then do that, like it is like not really yours at that point in time. Like it's other people's to like then interpret and shit like that. I think that's the only other like double-edged sword with it. But I feel like that comes with being an artist or like expressing yourself in any form. In some sense, it's kind of just like, you know, that like when you do that, it's kind of like it opens up a door within that. So I feel like that's the only thing about it. But I feel like, I guess it breeding the best shit is like a scary thing, because it's almost like a drug, right? Like if like you feeling these feelings breeds the best like version of yourself or some shit like that, or within art, it's scary when you like art. You know what I mean? Because say you're like looking at art and you're kind of like, damn, I'm looking at all the shit you make, and you look at the shit you make like, damn, this shit I made about this when I was going through it was ill. So I feel like that's the double-edged sword within it. Like you don't, a lot of times people do it to release and feel better.
Yeah.
So then it's
they
tough.
don't want to keep revisiting it.
It's tough to like look at it in both ways, where it's like then they use it in the sense when they feel bad to release from feeling bad.
Well, I mean, I guess like in the same sense, what I was thinking like throughout this whole conversation too is like art not only as a release, but like with a lot of different like media and different things, like it's also like an escape. And like the same thing with like
That's
with drugs, like where like a lot of people like use it as a way to like escape, and like maybe you're like going through some shit, or like you're really stressed out, or like, you know, something's going on in like your personal life, so like you're drawing because you don't want to think about it, or like you're doing, you know, you're making music because you don't want to think about it, or in other ways with some people like you're doing drugs because you don't want to think about it. Like it's just like all different ways to kind of like escape your reality, I
feel
guess.
like it's hard for me to say like if it's one or the other. That'd be like my response to it, because I understand how it could be a little bit of like an escape, but sometimes that escape is a release. Like, you know what I mean? It's like that's a real double-edged sword, you know? Because sometimes you trap without that, you know what I mean? So it's like that's the same thing as a release, like, you know?
Yeah. No, yeah, it's the same. Like an escape, just like, I mean, I guess it's like a little different, because an escape is more like avoiding things, where a release is like accepting the things that you have and like trying to like release that like energy, like negative energies or whatever that you're feeling from those things.
And that's the risk, is that it's hard to sometimes escape that state if, say, being in that state within art is so fruitful. And that's like something I've seen, you know what I'm saying? that like sometimes like art within that state is very like things people are really like drawn to, you know.
Yeah.
Or like succeeds, just because it's like hard for people, because in general it's hard for people to talk about those things or express those things. So it's like, you know, more hot commodity, more like, oh shit, like, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
I feel like that's the way that's the double-edged sword about society, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, people will be like hella hyped to see something that is like somebody, you know what I mean? They'll be like hella concerned to see some shit going on with something, but it's like, I don't know if they'll really give a fuck. You know what I mean? It's more so the idea of like, how do I say, I could elaborate on that, like the way we kind of like the idea of like why we would like, you know, get into something versus like what you put into it. That's kind of what I was getting at. I don't really know how to explain it better than that, but people, you know, why we get into it as the masses versus like, you know, as like our art and like our feeling putting into it, that I feel like collides it within that too. I mean, that colludes it within that too. You know what I'm saying? Like, it can kind of drive it too.
Like, kind of like if you like go like the political right, like kind of like with the Black Lives Matter thing, like how that like picked up so much traction randomly, and like after everything that happened, people were finally having riots, and people were all like posting like a black screen on their thing, and like, you know, like just really getting into it, and then it just died down, and it's just like, all right, now we're over it, next thing. And it's just kind of like, but the people that were like actually into the movement or like actually a part of it and like believed in it were like, nah, like it's not just over, like just because like everyone just kind of forgot about it, but like it was just like a mass thing. And like the same thing with like music or like different stuff where like everyone is into something at the same time, and then they just like forget about it. So
slightly, we don't have to talk about it hella, but like, because I know, I mean, you haven't gotten to it, but like, this is a good way we can talk a little bit about Euphoria and shit like that, because definitely we only wanted to talk about something within this episode, but something they depict within the show is like escape, what we talking about. And I feel like the relation to that is that like, I feel like with music and art, the thing that comes along with that sometimes that's tough is like drugs and the escape within that, and like addiction. And like, I feel like that's the same type of thing you can parallel when it comes to the what you mentioned, like music, and how it does kind of, how being in those states or whatever like make good art. I feel like the same shit happens with like with drugs and all this other shit, you know what I mean? Because it's like that makes you operate sometimes better or maneuver past whatever traumas or like mental shit you got going on, whether it's like anxiety, depression, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, it's crazy how those shits go hand in hand, and like even in shows like Euphoria and shit like that in pop culture, they depict them like perfectly because they show how they go hand in hand, you know?
Exactly.
I feel like a big part of why they go hand in hand, and it's something I feel like we might have touched on before in one of our early episodes with the pod, but it was having to do with like people accessing a sense of flow. And I feel like accessing the sense of flow sometimes is a sense of like release, right? It's a sense of just kind of falling into a certain vibe, and that can be achieved whether through music and arts and like really like a million different ways of like just kind of self-expression and release. I don't know if it's just like the fucking adrenaline rush or just like endorphins being released, whatever maybe you want to consider it, like on like the scientific and whatever, but like just the idea of it, like there's so much stuff that can elicit that, but drugs in a certain way for many folks is the most efficient way in a lot of ways to access that, because that sense of flow, while it is achievable, and I think it's one of those things where it's achievable but it's not easily achievable, I think, for many folks in a lot of different cases, just because of the way life presents itself, and there's just so many different things going on that can kind of cause if you want to call it roadblocks of sorts. And like certain drugs, for certain folks, they see it as like a way of kind of overcoming certain roadblocks for the moment, but it's not the only way to come across it, but it is a way to. And as a result of it being a way to, maybe like one of the most popular ways to, and what most people are like what most people know and aren't exposed to, and like it's one of those things where like seeing the efficiency of it and seeing how it works sometimes. Like it's easy to get in and hard to get out.
It's hard to not see.
Same like any other drug.
Like it's hard to not see how it like yeah, like I understand that. Like no, I was talking about that a little bit with Brianna. Like it's one of those things, I guess, when you're coming up, maybe I didn't realize so later on, but in life, but like I guess it was something I realized later on in life about my younger self, that it was hard to not be attracted to it, feeling those type of feelings, I guess, because of what you're saying. Like you see the efficiency in some sense for it, like how it vibes with those type of personality types or people that see, you know, you relate with that, you know, in general type shit. So at least for me, in getting into that, like, or ever trying like some shit like that, like it was kind of on some like, I don't know, like it was on the idea of those personality types, or just general kind of being like, well, looking back, like I feel like anxiety, you know, stress, other shit that you look for release from was something that I feel like pulled me towards that in general, because it's not like, I don't want to say like weed is a gateway drug or no shit like that, you know what I mean? I feel like weed is good, is good for certain people, you know what I'm saying, and for certain things, you know what I mean? But I think that at the time, like that was something I was seeing, and I feel like pills and shit like that was some shit that I like seen, like going to like, you know, the Euphoria shit, and going to the idea of release, and going to the idea of like kind of what you're pulled to and what you've seen and what you're exposed to as outlets for that release. You know what I'm saying? Like at the time, like it was kind of one of those things where there wasn't, it's not like I was seeing many other outlets for that release, but music was around, you know what I'm saying? Like music was definitely something I already knew was that, but then this was something else that, like, I don't know, like I seen that it had to do with that for some reason. Like I don't think when I first started about it, I did it as the idea of, clear that up as like, yo, I have anxiety, like I want to take this for that. Like it was still some of the factor of like we were talking about, like of, this is a drug, like, you know what I'm saying, like I did on the weekend, like at the beginning time, but then it became to the point in time where you see yourself doing it every weekend. And then I was doing it every weekend, and then I was like, damn, why am I doing this shit every weekend now? Like, you know what I mean? Because when you do this said drug, you forget shit, you don't remember shit. So that's why I started remembering, like, that I was doing, not remembering, but like kind of like realizing that I was doing it every weekend.
That's deep. I mean, that's interesting. I feel like
that was some young shit though. That was when I was like 18, 19. So at that time, say experimenting, you also got to throw that in the boat too. My idea of experimenting and trying new shit was a little bit different at the time. I didn't really know what it was about pills or shit like that in general, but I would say that release was something that was always already a part of my life, because I did sports. So like I did track and shit like that, and that was something that I did the time before I was into that had to do with the idea of, like, you know, relieving stress and doing shit for that. But I don't think it ever, like, that's what I'm saying, like I guess it wasn't conscious of me at the time that like I wanted to continue to do things or like push towards that. Like I don't even think music was something, you know what I'm saying? I don't even think music was something I was like looking at as I thought, like you were saying, like you just got the art way back. I thought I was just good at it. I didn't know I was good at music all along, but when I did feel like I was good at music, I was like, oh, I'm good at this. Like, I want to be the best. Like, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't like until I started seeing what I was writing about naturally and like getting into that flow that I started to understand, like, oh, you have, like, you want to let this out. You know what I mean? And then, but then that I think got difficult. And I think then that with what I was exposed to made me feel like, then let's try this. And, you know, luckily I didn't have ability to get no lean or no shit like that, but I at least thought to try to do some shit like that. But what I was able to get was what you was able to get.
So I think that outlines it perfectly, is that you said what you were able to get was what you were able to get. And like what I was gonna say is accessibility was like, I think is like one of the biggest things in a lot of this, like in saying, like, because I agree that I think everyone, because there's people that are within the arts industry, within the sports industry, within any industry that people revere to as like something that you can see as like the full endorphin release that like will give you everything that you need and more, you know, doing just that. You see people that are involved in that go down the road of drugs and other narcotic or any kind of whatever you want to call it as a vice or like whatever, right? And then you see it as like, what if this was supposed to be the one that like you can get get away from this completely, like why is it that these people are still falling into that? And like I feel like that kind of is like something that we're exposed to, in the sense of like you see all these artists, see all these people that you're like, you know, see all these sports figures, see all these just figures, influential figures that like you see, and they're like, you're supposed to be living this crazy, like this great life, going through all this, but you're still doing it. So like there's got to be something to this that like that is giving a release that none of this other shit is, right? In a certain sense. So like that's just like one kind of like base feeling that's like from being exposed to it, right? And then you add the accessibility factor, like you mentioned that like you don't want to say that weed is a gateway drug, and I feel like the way that weed has been painted into a gateway drug is because of the fact of accessibility. Like most people that like are just gonna start trying something out for the first time, what are the chances they're gonna jump into fucking like coke or heroin or you know, hard pill or like pills and like lean, and like it's what you're
it's way harder to even do.
It's way just because it's harder to get access to begin with, and like
you're just gonna do, going back to what you just said. I was like, you know what I'm saying? What you pointed out, I said like what you can get is what you can get.
Exactly.
Like, you're not gonna go above the mile if you already got the ability to get this, and it's already something you don't know about.
That on top of it being like something that in reference to those, that it's so much smaller that like why would you skip a step? Exactly. Like,
why would you're not gonna just jump and not know nothing about another. You're gonna be like, I'm gonna try this before I know what's up with that.
Exactly.
Kind of just common sensely, if you've learned anything other shit in relation to other shit. Like you might not know nothing about this, but you might compare some shit you learned somewhere else to this and be like, well, I should probably do step A for step B.
Like I'd fuck around and even like say that like coffee is the gateway drug for cocaine. You know what I mean? Or like
I get what
sugar,
you're saying. Like,
but
there's like other
it's
avenues if you want to open it up that big the way they do. Ooh, for me, I feel like one thing I want to ask you though that I kind of just forgot about was, before I got into any of that, the way I got into pills in general. I want to know if you guys heard of this. It was like, which is not dope. Don't do
tell me
this.
about these.
But this was how I decided that I would then do pills. It was like it was like these little, I'm not gonna say what it is, like that's because that's like a nickname. I mean, they're not gonna know. We could bleep that anyways. But it was like basically these little, it was like cough and cold medicine that you would take, and then you would take them and then you would feel funny, whatever. But then that was what initially then got me to think about what, you know, the idea of that, and then be able to then, but that was like for fun, like not for fun, but it was like in that vine. Like I wasn't like thinking about it like on the health spectrum, but like I don't know, I feel like in long run, like that was more so the gateway to that for me. You know what I mean? I always looked at it like that. Because I wasn't, you know what I mean? But it was the same tip off exposure. It was just like I was exposed to that, and then when I got exposed to that, then it made me look into some other shit, and then it made me more susceptible to when I got exposed to something else to be down.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm down.
Yeah, for me, like one of my friends when I was in my senior year, his cousin that he was really close to, who was a couple years older than us, was a drug dealer. So I was exposed to a lot of different stuff that I probably shouldn't have been. And like I would get really good prices on stuff because he was the homie and like he was like the main supplier. So like I definitely got into some stuff that I shouldn't have been. And like some of the things that I was into, like probably the thing that you were talking about, like from doing that, which I would do every single day just for school, like not even just a party, like I would just do it just to go to school. And like from doing that, I realized that I do have anxiety. And then after that, I did go to a therapist and was diagnosed and everything, so like it was all official. But before that, I didn't know. And the first time I remember ever taking it, I took like the tiniest bit, and I was at home in my house, and I was like going to sleep or something, and like I took the smallest bit, and I remember just like, instead of feeling like what everyone told me where you're like, you're gonna feel drunk, you're gonna feel like really loose or whatever, I just like didn't have those voices that I always hear in the back of my head that are like, no one wants to talk to you, that like they think that you're annoying, they think that you're worth like just all these like horrible things. Yeah, I just didn't hear that.
Which is why I feel like I don't want to, I guess, some sense like discredit why I guess some people may take that shit for their like health and shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
I know that, like, you know what I mean, there's some people that like take that small amount and shit. But I guess I feel like when I was doing it, I heard of that, and I didn't understand. Like you said, it made me notice it in a way, but it didn't help me, which was weird. Like it kind of helped me, but like in that sense, but I guess it ramped it up for me in a way, like, you know what I'm saying, like it made me feel like I had to be honest the whole time, and then the way I felt on it was funny. But like I get exactly what you're saying on the tip of like that feeling is, it does take away those inhibitions, and then in some people I feel like those inhibitions are really high towards debilitating and shit. So it's like I get it, but like that should become like, I don't know, it that's why I was gonna ask you, when you first did it, was it something that you kind of like how you were saying, like you knew that it had to do with your anxiety, like that was a quick, immediately, like when you first tried it, you just started being like, oh, like I need more to function type shit? Because that's interesting, because I've had other people that are my friends that have, you know, same times as me, got into that type of stuff, and I didn't have that experience, but they also had that experience that you're saying, that where they were more so like, nah, this is more, it more so was like I can actually feel good now.
No, yeah, definitely immediately made me feel like normal, because, you know, I would talk about it with my friends about how, like, you know, I just had these voices and stuff, and they would always be like, oh yeah, I feel the same way. Like I always sometimes have like a doubt feeling that like maybe these people don't want to hang out with me, or maybe like, you know, maybe I'm not good enough or whatever. But like I didn't realize to the extent that like what I have, people don't have. Like it's not, that's not normal. Like to feel that way every now and then is fine, but every single day to feel it like all the time when you're talking to people and constantly think it, like that's not normal. Like most people don't always feel that way. And that's what I really like BoJack Horseman, like getting back to that, is there's this one episode that's my favorite episode in the whole show. It's called Stupid Piece of Shit. And the whole episode is his inner dialogue, or his inner monologue actually, of him talking to himself in his head. And like, I guess actually a dialogue, because it's like him talking to himself, but like it's like two versions of him, like one saying that like what you're saying is not right, and the other one saying like, oh, everything I'm saying is like completely right. So like I guess it's kind of like a dialogue, but like it's like his whole like inner thoughts of like him just going throughout his day. So like he wakes up and like he's like, oh, like you better not eat cookies for breakfast, like that's not actually breakfast. And then he's like, don't you dare eat that cookie, and he's like eating like cookies, and like it's just like different shit that he like does throughout his day that he like says like you shouldn't do, but like he does it anyway, and like is in like his like the whole time is like himself calling like you're just a stupid piece of shit, and that's why you're doing this, that's why you're making these decisions. And like it's really interesting in that way, because at the very end of the episode, what's really sad is like he's with this person that like he thinks is his daughter, and she like says to him like throughout that whole day, I guess she also had an inner dialogue in her head saying that like the reason that he wasn't hanging out with her and spending time with her is because she's a stupid piece of shit, and that he didn't want to be with her because he's horrible. But in reality, in his mind, he was thinking he's so horrible he shouldn't be with her, because if he hangs out with her, he's so horrible he's gonna like rub off on her type of shit. And so she asked him at the end of the episode, she's like, sorry, it's just like do you not like me? And he's like, no, of course I love you. And she's like, sorry, it's just like sometimes I have this voice in the side of my head that tells me that I'm just horrible and no one likes me. But she's like, but that's just like a young teenage girl thing, right? Like that you grow out of that when you get older. And like him knowing that he went through the entire day having that exact voice, he's like, yeah, it goes away. Like you don't feel it when you get older. And like that, it was so deep for me, that part, because he's like, he knows that it doesn't go away. It never goes away, but he like wants her to feel hopeful. Like, so he's like, yeah, it goes away.
That's like the exact like great definition of like what anxiety for sure is. Like that last part, like where it really is some shit that's like, how you say, like it's like that. I don't know, that like that second,
that little voice.
It's like that second guess beating yourself up over some shit that like you think you should just let go.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Or it's just not worry about like that as much, but like that like overextent of it. Because I feel like it relates to stress in the way, and that's the barrier that we all have with the certain stresses we should feel to like push us and shit. But I feel like there is that part of like, or what they're getting at in that corner of that show, that like does that factor of like, you know, shit you're supposed, like you feel like you're supposed to be able to like kind of not be worried about or whatever. Like do I ever feel good about it? Like do I ever feel smooth about it? Do I get that flow? You know what I'm saying? And like sometimes some people feel like that shit that's the danger in it. It's like, well, not danger, because I feel like whatever you use for it sometimes people find different things for it. That's what I've come to find about. Like, what you get your release off is different, and sometimes I feel like drugs come into that. And but the part about it is sometimes people feel like you could risk your life within that. I think that's the whole like double-edged sword, where some people can paint the other thing you do as your release. You could risk your life in those things, depending what it is. But I feel like that's the other argument, where they're like, you know what I'm saying? Like, some people, they might get a release when they ride motorcycles or when they do something, you know what I mean? Like, something dare defying that, like, gives them a release that could be similar. It don't gotta be something dare defying, but I feel like that's the argument a lot of people have, is that, like, you know, it's your fix, your personal, you know?
I agree with that. And I think with in the terms of, like, in like what you were talking about with, like, at the end of the episode where he still says yes, it does go away. That's some deep shit. And then I like that made me really think onto some, like, I feel like people will tend to try to disguise the reality of certain, or call it reality, but I think they use that as a terms of hope. Like, they say it does because they hope it does.
Right.
Like I think, and I'm thinking of this in the sense of, like,
that's why you need to watch Euphoria, bro.
when we teach children, like, what's going on in life, and, like, there's, like, certain topics that are quote unquote the realities of life that we just don't, like, fully delve in with children, like, off the bat, right? And I think part of it, in certain ways that, like, certain people approach the topic, is in a sense, in a way, hopeful, that in saying what they say, because, like, they're not even sure if it, like, they're just saying, like, I'm not sure, but I think this is how it plays out, and, like, they're doing it, like, as a way of, like,
kind of like
maybe, like, trying to
shelter, like, you to some degree.
Shelter. I was gonna say shelter, but, like, trying to, like, prophesize it into, like, trying to manifest it. You know what I mean? Like, in the sense of, like, hope. Sense. You know what I mean? Like, trying to, like,
got you. Like, instill a sense of, like, in you that, like, this could happen, which is hope.
It's just a reflection of them. I think that they're just hoping in it. Like, there's certain like, certain things in life where it's just like, this is just so deep and real. Like, if I just tell you this, like, maybe that'll break you. Maybe, like, in a certain sense, but, like,
sometimes I guess
the same way
like
it breaks,
they feel like that power could
the same
make
way,
it happen.
Exactly the same way it breaks them thinking of it in, like, certain lights, and being like, man, like, if you think of it like this way, yeah, like, this is what it is, and, like, it's so dark, but, like, the only thing that kind of helps me get out of it is this certain hope of it. And so, like, if someone asks me about this, like, the way to reply to them, I feel like, is with the hope, you know, aspect. And I feel like that is kind of, like, what that made me think of in thinking of that, the ending of that episode. The way you described it was just interesting, because I feel like that just relates to just how people handle life in general. Like, there's just so many times where you say you don't say that reality of, like, what's hurting you on, like, the inside of, like, even if you say, like, maybe it's even on that deep shit of, like, when people say, like, how's your day today, and, like, you say, like, oh, it's fine, even if you're not having a great day. Like, even if in saying, maybe it's not you wanting to delve into it, because, like, in delving into it, it's just, like, some deep shit that, like, you don't want to go into, but, like, in also saying it's fine, maybe it's, like, a hopeful saying of, like, saying, like, it's fine, like, that's just us, like, kind of projecting, like, it is fine, like, whatever, like, trying to be hopeful, even if it's, like, I don't know to what end it helps, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like that's just kind of, like, the sentiment it comes across as to me.
Yeah. Nah, I definitely get that. Yeah, and I definitely feel like on the Euphoria episode that, like, they kind of throughout the show, they kind of depict that very well, because they want you to have somewhat hope for the main character that, like, they'll make it out of this shit. But, like, they also show you just, like, the pits and, like, the falls of the shit, you know what I mean? And I think that was the biggest thing about it for me that just struck me, at least, is just, like, the way they depicted withdrawal. And, like, it was just, like, deep.
I think that's what, like, strong with the show, and, like, kind of what you were saying, like, sometimes it's not fine, and, like, sometimes, like, that's why, like, I like with, like, going into psychology and, like, you know, having that major and stuff, like, sometimes things are not fine, and it's, like, it's okay to say that. And I think that, like, you know, as much as you can be hopeful for things to be better, and, like, that's maybe why you're saying it's fine, that's not really, like, showing steps towards it, like showing steps towards being hopeful is like talking about what happened and getting through it and being like, because like saying it's fine is like ignoring it and being like, it's fine. Like, and that's another thing that like another reason I really got pushed into psychology is like with my mom growing up, even though now she's definitely like changed a lot in that, but growing up she's always been the type of person that's like, it could be worse. You could be one of those people in Africa where you don't have, you know, you're living in a village where you're poor, you don't have water supply and like all these different shit where I'm like, okay,
that you're in psychology,
one
like, what's
doesn't
the
happen
psychology
nowadays,
behind
but,
that?
well, it's not really, there's not really a psychology behind it. It's more just like people trying to discredit your own reality and your own viewpoint and like your own struggles and whatever you might be going through, no matter what it is. People are trying to discredit it and making it seem like it's so much smaller compared to all of the world's problems, which, yeah, okay, I could be living in a third world country where I don't have easy access to food or water or any resources, and I could be, you know, living somewhere where I don't even have a house or a roof, and like, yeah, it could be a lot worse. But like whenever I think about that, whenever people try to like use that as like oh well, it could be worse and like it could be that, I always think like, if anything, you know, just like living with like the depression, like the different things that I've like gone through, I'd much rather it be that, because at least then you can pinpoint your problems on what it is. I don't have food, I don't have this, I don't have money, I don't have that. Whereas like when you're living in like modern day America, when you still have those depressions and anxieties and like whatever feelings you might feeling where like you don't feel whole, or you have like those like, you know, emptiness, like you don't know necessarily where it comes from all the time. So it's like that, if anything, is worse.
I see the mental stress,
you know what I mean?
that you face versus like the way you maybe would settle into
like the physical stress.
Like you would set into the struggle that you have to deal with possibly a little bit more easier.
Yeah, because then you know what the struggles are.
Yeah, I'm rather than you know what they are. I feel like your options to address them are very, like, you know, you don't have like a fix. Like, you know, everybody for the next couple towns have been doing the same shit for this. You know what I mean? So I feel like you would settle into that idea more so, or you maybe get extra fed up. But I feel like you either get as fed up to be the fool that figured it out, or you would just be chilling. That's the way I look at it. You know what I mean? Like looking at history, like you'd either be the guy that got like, you know, worked up enough to just be like, I figured it the new way, or you just were chilling with everybody else. Eventually, you were just like, well, this is what everybody's doing. Fuck you.
Yeah.
But that's versus now where it's like we have all this extra information and like you think you know, and then you don't know, and you just keep like hitting yourself against the head like, fuck, I don't know shit.
No, exactly.
But like, you know, back then they really was like, we really don't know, bro. Like,
yeah,
it's all about our relative struggles, you know.
Exactly.
Everyone's struggling in their own way.
Exactly. And like the whole thing with like substance abuse, especially, like that's even harder than like any other than most other like struggles, because like again it's all like physical things of like maybe you don't have food or resources, things like that. But like with substance abuse and people that are like, you know, severely addicted to drugs or alcohol or different things, like you might have all of the resources and all of the family and everyone that cares about you, and you know, resource people that want you to get into rehab or like whatever, and you just ignore all of that. Thanks. Because you don't care about any of it. You're just becoming this like selfish person that you just,
it is, I feel like a personal thing. That is something that I've kind of came to figure out, at least in my own experience, that like getting on and off that type of shit is like something you really have to do, in my personal opinion.
It's a lot of willpower.
I don't really think it has a lot to do with what other people want for you.
It's all
I've
about
never
yourself.
really felt like that. Like even when it comes to other people, I like cared about. Like I never felt like it mattered much if I wanted them to, or if other people wanted me. When I wanted to, it had to do with me being like, all right, like I don't like this. That's how I feel about this, and I was just like good on it. You know what I mean? But I feel like that a lot of times those other things, or the way people feel about that shit and you doing that shit, is so strong that like that you say you may have all that, but you just push away from that because it's not like, you know, either that's in your head or like other stuff is making you feel like this is so important that like I'm good on that. You know what I mean? Yeah, like it kind of like takes a hold on you, and like you can't,
like, escape it sometimes. Like sometimes it's just like, you know, like you just don't want to be sober, and you don't like especially like with Rue, like especially what we were talking about earlier with like Euphoria, and like how like Rue feels when she was like in that, you know, in the few last episodes in season 2 where she's like
I didn't
not
been
wanting
there
to be sober,
but not there,
like,
but like not about that exactly, but I've just been in that idea of like the way, just her breakdown, just in a breakdown.
No, I'm not taking pills and stuff like her at all, but I understand her struggle of not wanting to just like be sober and just like be a normal person.
Just having
like,
shit
I understand
to deal with
that.
in general.
And,
like
yeah,
the idea of like
I get
having
that.
shit
It's
to deal
hard
with,
to
and
just,
then people kind of like, and being young. Like I think that's the one thing the show really like depicts of that, like being in this current state in society. That's just in general what I think comes with a lot of these issues, or what is the backbone to a lot of these issues, is like growing up in this society, being exposed to what we talking about, being exposed to, and then having the resources you have. It creates like this, where it's like some shows like this where it's like, yo, this is a reality of like what people are like going through, you know what I mean? Not every person, and that's what it does a cool thing too, where it's like not every person, but it's like one in every, you know, type of thing. Where it's like, okay, like you may not be the one in your group, but then somebody in your group is, and it's kind of just like that across America. Like
yeah.
That's true. It's sad, but it's the reality.
yeah. But fucking one thing we could get into now is the life affirmations part. Before we get to the end of the pod and the music thing, is we all go around and share one thing that we, you know, look at differently now, or look at differently the last 2 weeks, month, or year, however you really want to do it. But like that's kind of the gist of the whole thing. I was thinking about it somewhat. I usually start it off, you know, give everybody some time to think. Last time I talked about, like, I think I talked about money and saving and shit like that. But one thing I'll say I'll look at differently, I'll do a short one, because I give them, you know, I'll be doing them. But last time, I don't know if I talked about moving to New York or not, but I'll say in the short term, at one point in time, I did look at moving to New York as a little bit. I looked at it a lot of different ways. That's why this one I wanted to share, because I feel like I changed my view on how I looked at it, like mad different times. Like one point in time I looked at it and I was like, I wouldn't want to live there. I was like, I'm trying to visit, you know. And then I changed from being like, well, I mean, it'd be a good move to live there for a short period in time. And then then the idea of that changed, because I got into that. But now my mind changed into being like, I wanted to visit there first and then move. But bigger than that, I mean, a big change of how I want to view New York, the bigger one I get into, is like the idea of looking at it as somewhere I want to, you know, just visit, to somewhere I want to live and be there for possibly like 4 months to 6 months. And I feel like that had a lot to do with maybe my view of here changing, and like, not like I've seen everything I need to see here. I just feel like I know I can come back here and like always do what we're doing, you know what I mean? Not at this level, but I feel like I can like do this and I can still do it, and I don't feel like I'm not gonna stop doing it. So it's one of those things where it's like, maybe I should go see what other stuff I can do in the meantime to help doing what I'm doing. But also like that's what first formed the thought, but it also had a lot to do with maybe just the idea of like growing when you're in new environments, and seeing that in LA your reach out here is like, how do you say, like, it has to do with your perspective, you know what I mean? Like, and living out here and being, or like just growing up somewhat in this general area, like when you meet new people and your avenues to like how you get around and like network is a lot different, and it's like an interesting process, and sometimes it's like needed when you're trying to just like grow your business and art and shit like that. So I feel like that's just something I want to test the waters with. And I've never been to New York, so, but I think in that, once I formed that point, I was like, okay, let me rethink this. This happened like about a couple weeks ago. I was like, let me decide to visit first, because I've never been before I just full on moved there. So
Right.
And now I'm at the point of where I'm gonna plan to visit a few times, and I'm gonna go to a festival. I'm gonna visit once, and then I'm gonna go to a festival, and then I'm gonna try to move after that if I really fuck with it. But I feel like all in all, going there and visiting a lot is gonna benefit me, and that's what I kind of my life affirmation thing is, that like I feel like I didn't think that point in time, but now I realize that that's a point in travel that will really benefit me and like kind of maybe further business, because it's like it's good environment, good people, and good new experience in a way that like in a market that could help me like grow and like shit. I could find shit that I like too, outside of just like only here, I guess, because there's shit that I like here too.
It's dope, and I fuck with that. I agree with that. I think it's a good move to visit anywhere before you move out, right? You know, it's a big risk to just move into any place blind, let alone a new city, whether it be across the country or not. Like, but one thing that you did outline that I did also really like was, oh man, I feel like I'm blanking right now. Do you mind repeating, sorry, the last like two words you said?
I think I was talking about finding more things that like I like things here, but there's things that I like out there as
That's
well.
what it was.
Finding more shit that I like out there.
That's what it was. I really like that idea, and I think that's just beyond whether it be like moving someplace, it's just traveling to more just different cities and getting to know the rest of the world and seeing how many different opportunities there are to be out there. I think is something that like should be eagerly like explored by everybody. I feel like that should be something that we should all kind of strive to towards more too.
At all the opportunities you can touch being out here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Just being from here, and like when you really start to get into, you're like, whoa, like there's a lot of opportunities you can like reach and touch, and like all this different. Imagine like in other areas when you get into those areas, and like I've seen little hints of what that feels like. So I'm like, imagine what it feels like over there. You know?
It'd be awesome. It's amazing.
And having shit backing it too, not backing it, but like behind you, shit to like do,
to stand on a little bit. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's a different feeling. I feel like where I'm like excited about.
It's true. That's dope. That's really dope.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I've been feel like I've had these past almost like 2 months now, I've had a lot more time to myself to reflect on like trajectory for life and like what is it that I want to allocate my time to and stuff like that. And I realized that just with me being as a person, like sometimes I find like inspiration in like moments of spurts and like moments of like it doesn't feel consistent across the board all the time. And in time when I have, because I feel like time is one, like I feel like I've mentioned this a lot in this pod at this point, but time is one of those commodities. It's the biggest commodity in the world. It's the thing that we just don't get back. It's the thing that, it's the rarest thing that we have in possession, honestly. And as a result, it's one of those things where like I find myself beating myself up a lot when I find myself wasting time, or what I feel like to be wasting time. And I feel like it's a good thing that I do to myself, because I'm like, it makes me kind of reaffirm into me that like the battery pack that I need to keep me moving forward should be myself. It has to be self-motivation. It can't be anything else that I'm waiting on and hoping for and like just trying to see if like that'll kind of like spark it, because like in doing so, I mean, one, I don't know if it'll ever happen, but like two, it doesn't even feel genuine to me. Like I feel like one of those things where in life, at least for me, when I've come to realize is like the moment of like the most like happy when I feel is when I feel like I'm pushing myself into doing whatever it is that I want to do, and like just being happy, like just enjoying life, right? But in part of that is like pushing myself to do that. And I find myself now that I'm in this position where I have more time to kind of reflect on it and kind of like really put myself in that position to an extent of being like, one, finding how difficult it can be to stay consistently motivated at all times, and two, just like within that difficulty still striving to like just remind myself like every day, like you need to be your own inspiration. Like like you need to do things because like this is just like what you want to do, and in result, if you want to do it, you're gonna do it. And like just kind of like reassessing that, like as long as like I'm doing what I want to do, like I should be, like I'll do it as a result. And like I guess that's where it's like kind of like the line straddling of like being my own battery pack, and like in being my own battery pack, the batteries being like finding like my goal, like just being, whether it's like reassessing goals or just kind of like reaffirming goals, being like, this is your goal, and so this is what's pushing you forward. This is your goal, and this is what's pushing you forward, you know? But yeah, that's just kind of been my mentality these past few months. What about you? Anything you've been thinking about?
I don't know anything like super recently. I guess just like in the past like year or so, more just like with my psychology degree, I decided to like want to take it further. Like at first I wanted to just get my master's and maybe just do like marriage and family therapist, which is a lot of or like social worker, which is a route a lot of people go through, which is a lot less schooling. But I actually, like not too long ago, started reading this book called Still Alice. And even before that, I decided I want to get my doctorate. But I started reading this book called Still Alice, which is really interesting. It's about this woman that gets early onset Alzheimer's disease. And she's like 55 or something. And she's like in her prime. She's a psychology teacher at Harvard. She has her PhD. She goes to conferences. Like she's a very smart woman. And she gets to the point where she doesn't remember her children's names. And it's just like, it's just very interesting her going through that. But I think the part that like spoke to me the most and like made me most interested in the field that I was already going into was like these conferences that she would speak at, and these like different lectures and things that she would go to, and like just like display her research or like different things, and like talk about different topics, and like say essays in front of people. And like I don't know why that just like excited me a lot, because it's like one thing to like talk in front of a class, which I've never minded doing, and like especially in college I don't mind doing, especially like going first, like I don't care about that. It's not like doing a presentation. But it's another thing to be able to like present in front of a bunch of colleagues that are all like at the same status as you, and they're all like studying the same thing you're studying, and like, you know, just like specialize in that field. And like it would just be really interesting to be able to do that. And like I've always listened to TED Talks too. Like I love TED Talks, and one of my dreams definitely is to have my own TED Talk and like go at actual TEDx and speak at in front of everyone. Like I that's my like goal in life, to like do.
Do you
that.
think you'd make the time?
Huh?
You think you make the time, like the little timer that they have, like
For the TEDx?
I always watch them and they don't be making the time. Like they always
Yeah,
look
I
at
definitely
it,
won't make
and
it.
they're always like, "Oh, we only got 12 minutes, so 12
Yeah.
seconds."
Yeah, no, I definitely wouldn't make it, because I think they have like an hour, like most of them. Like it depends on what they are, but like I've seen some that are like an hour long. So I feel like depending on, I want to get the hour slot. That'd be like a good amount of time to be able to talk about everything. But yeah, like that's definitely one of like my goals, to like do that.
That'd be cool. That'd be
Yeah,
very cool.
like I guess like that. I guess just like going into like just like what you said, like just things that like you like affirmations, like things that you like realized recently. I guess that would be one that like I've realized that like
Something you'd be down to do.
Yeah,
You
like
wanna
I'm
do.
yeah, like that I want to do. Like I'm definitely like an academic, and I've, you know, like I like school, and you know, just like talking about like different stuff like that. And I would definitely be down to like even after school, like still be doing research and like trying to get published and stuff like that. So yeah.
Thank you for coming on to the podcast today. I hope you had a good time. It was great having you and talking about everything we talked about today. I feel like we had like a good flow of conversation going. We used flow a lot today, and I feel like that was a good word for what was going on.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, well, thank you guys for having me.
You know what I'm saying? You got anything?
Let them, anything you want to let the people know? Anything like where they can follow you?
And you don't have to. You can just say like your art. I only have an art page. You know.
Well, I don't have an art page yet, but I guess follow me at Instagram at _Bri, _BASSBRI. And yeah, other than that, yeah, I don't have an art page yet. Like I want to start a Twitter soon and start actually like selling my art. So that's why I want to like shout out my Instagram, because if I do make a Twitter for that, I'll put it. Yeah, I'll put the link on there. So, but yeah, that's basically it.
Well, hell yeah! Thank you again for coming, and peace out, everyone.
Bye.
Mind Tree Radio.
shit. So I'ma say, blah. I'm gonna record the first track. Patiently holding the doubts in the palm of my hand. I can't swear no more bullshit. I've been all up in the pulpit. By much on my side, I lift fire to I messed that up. I was like, by much on my side. By much on my side, I lift fire to cool kids. Remarkably crafting this music. My pain and my influence. My pain, my influence, I'm stupid. My influence, I'm stupid. But should I abuse it? Is this an illusion? I'm a magic man, watch me wave my hands to the crowd. Peace signs in the middle of my mouth. Peace signs, benefiting them now. All I know is that I'm standing up now. For anything, I believe in it now. So give a fuck if you hated me out. You could second, you could love it, you could kill me now. But I'ma write this in these songs, and I'ma keep on singing now. Cause I got a lot to live, I got a lot to say today. But I've been a long time, no, I ain't passing the pain away. But I've been on fighting this voice inside of me, numbing the pain and the rain and hiding me. They don't let me, they running, get fighting me. I can't run with this paper, they biting me. Shadow no ram on the gram on the phone, no time on no let them know something. That we been all living in nothing. It's all good though, cause I didn't have most of that written down, and a lot of it I put, yeah, a lot of it was off the dome, and I was like, hell yeah. This shit was cool. Patiently holding my doubts in the palm of my hand, I can't swear no more bullshit. Is it recording still? Yeah. Patiently holding my doubts in the palm of my hand. I can't sweat no more bullshit. I've been all up in the pulpit. By much on my side, I left fire the cool kid. Nah, I'm gonna try it again. Patiently holding my doubts in the palm of my hand. I can't sweat no more bullshit. I've been all up in the pulpit. By much on my side, I left fire the cool kids. Remarkably crafting this music. My pain, my influence. Oh, nah, I see it. Bro, did a bee get in here, bro? Oh, fuck. God damn, that shit's on some bird shit, though. Are you sure, bro? That shit's looking tough. Damn, sorry. Passion holding my dose in the palm of my hand. I get spinning my bullshit. I've been all up in the pulpit. I'm my son. I've been all up in the pulpit. I'm my son. Patiently holding my doubts in the palm of my hand. I can't swear no more bullshit. I've been all up in the pulpit. Like my son, my hold on. Patiently holding my doubts in the palm of my hand. I can't swear no more bullshit. I've been all up in the pulpit. Bite myself. Okay, I got it. Wow. Patiently holding my doubts in the palm of my hand. I can't swear no more bullshit. I've been all up in the pulpit. By much on my rib, I live fire the cool kids. Remarkably crafting this music. My pain, my influence, I'm stupid. But should I abuse it? This an illusion. I'm a magic man and I've been confusing my doubts and my realness. So I've been trying to get it concealed with my fear. But I can't seem to use none of these pain, crutch emotions just to pass the time. So I keep rhyming like I got something to prove. But I know that I'm closer than the past versions of myself that was on the beat, crying for some sense of self. Cause I know who I am and how to spaz and grab the attention of the folks up in the crowd. But I could give a fuck about it while I'm screaming loud at my parents yelling wow. Cause I give a fuck about fate, life for real will crash it down. So I pass the swisher to my brothers in decipher peace signs. You could decipher all the love that's in the verses. But I feel like giving hearses out to anyone that think they better than the one. Cause I've been rapping, having fun since I was young under the sun. But yeah, I know keep jamming funds don't stack up and we run back to the rules. Cause we could never run from But we started in this laboratory, practice songs, but I've been getting hella gory, getting all these allegories out my mind. But songs have been rhyming half the time, so I find my soul in lines. Anytime I feel divine, I just turn one up and roll one up and smoke one for my pain. Let these niggas know that you don't suck and you can spit cocaine. Raps that let they head clap back and tell them you the man. Independent shit for jams, peace signs, middle fingers up, this shit in high demand. Cause they can't ride the illness. I'm in rhyming, spinach all up in my rhymes. This shit is pretty easy. I need some time to get real cheesy. Get in my grind and get on the cool. Cause I've been the vines and I've been the new. So I've been the ooh, we going too hard on this beat. We fucked this beat up. Yeah. Yeah, bro, we fucked the beat up, bro.
Vine Tree Radio.